about whether parents should vaccinate their children. He's just asking questions and giving people choices. It's a slippery tactic to dodge any real responsibility for his words and actions. And it is, in my view, absurd coming from somebody who's trying to win confirmation for a job that is entirely about making recommendations. These recommendations are going to have life or death consequences for the American people. Mr. Kennedy, if you are confirmed, your recommendations determine which vaccines senior citizens get for free through Medicare. Your recommendation will determine which vaccines are given to millions of kids. Peddling these anti-vaccine conspiracy theories as our chief health officer is going to endanger the lives of kids and seniors across the nation. Just look at what happened when Mr. Kennedy inserted himself into an anti-vaccination crisis in the island nation of Samoa. He traveled there himself to push his views and pour fuel on the fire of a measles outbreak that began due to low vaccination rates. In the end, 83 Samoans died, mostly kids, from a disease that is easily preventable. Americans cannot afford to import this experiment to our great nation. On other healthcare matters, from abortion to universal healthcare, Mr. Kennedy has changed his views so often it is nearly impossible to know where he stands on so many of the basic issues that impact Americans' daily lives. In a gobsmacking statement of irresponsibility, in November 2023, Mr. Kennedy said that he wanted to pause infectious disease research for 8 years. Mr. Kennedy has indicated he's open to restricting access to the abortion medication mifepristone, which remains a primary target of the Republican crusade against reproductive freedom. I took this on back in 1990 when I chaired the first congressional hearing on the topic. The science was clear then, it's even clearer today. Mifepristone is safe. The only reason it's under question in 2025 is because people with a political agenda have been out lying about it. Women deserve to know if Mr. Kennedy will abuse his power as our country's chief health officer to essentially implement a national abortion ban by restricting access to the safe and legal medication. Meanwhile, as the Trump budget office threw the Medicaid program into chaos yesterday, Republicans in Congress are proposing deep cuts to the program that will rip away health care for millions of Americans who count on this vital lifeline. Cuts to Medicaid of this magnitude are going to jack up the cost of health insurance. It'll shutter nursing homes and rural hospitals, deprive seniors and Americans with disabilities of home-based care. That approach amounts to handing over our nation's health system to for-profit insurance companies who've made a fortune delaying and denying care. Mr. Kennedy has virtually no knowledge or experience in handling these issues. It leaves him unprepared to take on a crisis like the nation witnessed yesterday when the Trump budget office shut down the federal Medicaid payment portal. After a careful review of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s statements, actions, and views, materials that I have reviewed personally and closely, I've reached the conclusion that he should not be entrusted with the health and well-being of the American people. When he's taken every side of every issue, how can this committee and the American people believe he has anything to say? Let me close by saying I believe more strongly than ever, and I have specialized in healthcare during my time in public service, that we're a turning point with regard to healthcare in America. If there's one word to describe Americans' feelings towards the healthcare system, it's disillusion. At every single turn, people feel like they're rolling a load of dice, loaded dice, when they try to get healthcare. Americans are justifiably angry, fed up, and tired of a system that puts profits over patients. Instead of debating meaningful ways to improve Americans' health care, now the committee is being forced to relitigate settled science about vaccines and whether or not the federal government should help Americans get affordable health care. I know where Democrats on this finance committee stand when it comes to an agenda to lower costs and improve care. I must say, I cannot say the same about the nominee sitting in front of me. And let me acknowledge, finally, Mr. Chairman, Terry Mills from Portland, Oregon, who is here to represent Nurses for America, and I'd like to enter a statement from her organization into the record at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection. Thank you, Ranking Member Wyden. Mr. Kennedy, in a few moments, you will be given the opportunity to make your opening statement and respond to these attacks and other questions that the members of this committee have. I would say that with regard to the attack on Medicaid that we just heard, that was a false attack. It's been proven false overnight. The Medicaid portal is operating efficiently today and was never intended to be shut down.
Would gentleman yield, since he's mentioned my name? There was a significant amount of time yesterday where there was bedlam across the country over the status of the Medicaid portals. I hope it's being corrected, but there were problems all through the day.
There certainly were attacks yesterday. The problem has been clarified and Medicaid portal is fully operational as we speak. Mr. Kennedy, before I turn the time over to you to share your opening statement, I would like to give you a brief introduction. The son of Senator Robert F. Kennedy and nephew of President John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy Jr. has been an advocate for consumers since 1985. After graduating from Harvard University, Mr. Kennedy studied at the London School of Economics and received his law degree from the University of Virginia Law School and a master's degree in environmental law from Pace University. He has founded 2 advocacy groups and has spent the last 40 years working to restore and protect children's health. He was a former independent candidate in the 2024 presidential election, and President Trump nominated him this year to be in November of 2024 to be the HHS Secretary. In announcing his nomination, President Trump stated, "Mr. Kennedy will restore these agencies to the traditions of gold standard scientific research and beacons of transparency and end the chronic disease epidemic and make America great and healthy again." Before you give your opening statement, Mr. Kennedy, I have 4 obligatory questions that we ask all nominees before this committee. First, is there anything that you are aware of in your background that might present a conflict of interest with the duties of the office to which you have been nominated?
All right. No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Do you know of any reason, personal or otherwise, that would in any way prevent you from fully and honorably discharging the responsibilities of the office to which you have been nominated?
No, I do not.
Do you agree without reservation to respond to any reasonable summons to appear and testify before any duly constituted committee of Congress if you are confirmed?
Yes, I do.
And finally, do you commit to providing a prompt response in writing to any questions addressed to you by any senator of this committee?
Yes, I do.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And before you begin, if you would like to, you may introduce your wife and children.
Yes. My wife, Cheryl Hines, is here. My daughter, Kit Kennedy, my son, Bobby Kennedy, his wife, Amaryllis Fox Kennedy, and my nephew, Jackson Hines, is here too.
We welcome you all. Thank you. You may proceed with your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Crapo, Ranking Member Wyden, and members of this distinguished committee. I'm humbled to be sitting here today as President Trump's nominee to oversee the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I want to thank President Trump for entrusting me to deliver on his promise to make America healthy again. I also want to thank Cheryl and Kik and Bobby and all of my other children who are here today, and all the many members of my large extended family for the love that they have so generously shared. Ours has always been a family that has been involved in public service, and I look forward to continuing that tradition. My journey into the issue of health began with my career as an environmental attorney, working with hunters and fishermen and mothers in a small town in the Hudson Valley and along the Hudson River. I learned very early on that human health and environmental injuries are intertwined. The same chemicals that kill fish make people sick also. Today, Americans' overall health is in grievous condition. Over 70% of adults and a third of children are overweight or obese. Diabetes is 10 times more prevalent than it was during the 1960s. Cancer among young people is rising by 1 or 2% a year. Autoimmune diseases, neurodevelopmental disorders, Alzheimer's, asthma, ADHD, depression, addiction, and a host of other physical and mental health conditions are all on the rise, some of them exponentially. The United States has worse health than any other developed nation, yet we spend more on healthcare, at least double, and in some cases triple, as other countries. Last year, we spent $4.8 trillion, not counting the indirect costs of missed work. That's almost a fifth of GDP. It's tantamount to a 20% tax on the entire economy. No wonder America has trouble competing with countries that pay a third of what we do for health and have better outcomes and a healthier workforce. But I don't want to make this too much about money. It's the human tragedy that moves us to care. President Trump has promised to restore America's global strength and to restore the American dream, but he understands that we can't be a strong nation when our people are so sick. A healthy person has 1,000 dreams, a sick person has only one. Today, over half of our countrymen and women are chronically ill. When I met with President Trump last summer, I discovered that he is more than just concerned for this tragic situation, but genuine care. President Trump is committed to restoring the American dream, and 77 million Americans delivered a mandate to him to do just that, due in part to the embrace and elevation of the Make America Healthy Again movement. This movement, led largely by Maha moms from every state, you can see many of them behind us today, and in the hallways and in the lobbies, is one of the most transcendent and powerful movements I've ever seen. I promise President Trump that if confirmed, I will do everything in my power to put the health of Americans back on track. And I've been greatly heartened to discover a deep level of care among members of this committee too, both Democrats and Republicans. I came away from our conversations confident that we can put aside our divisions for the sake of a healthier America. For a long time, the nation has been locked in a divisive healthcare debate about who pays. Well, when healthcare costs reach 20%, there are no good options, only bad ones. Shifting the burden around between government and corporations and insurers and providers and families is like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Our country will sink beneath the sea of desperation and debt if we don't change the course and ask, why are healthcare costs so high in the first place? The obvious answer is chronic disease. The CDC says 90% of healthcare spending goes toward managing chronic disease, which hits lower income Americans the hardest. The president's pledge is not to make some Americans healthy again, but to make all of our people healthy again. There is no single culprit in chronic disease. Much as I have criticized certain industries and agencies, President Trump and I understand that most of their scientists and experts genuinely care about American health. Therefore, we will bring together all stakeholders in pursuit of this unifying goal. Before I conclude, I want to make sure the committee is clear about a few things. News reports have claimed that I'm anti-vaccine or anti-industry. I am neither. I am pro-safety.
Please proceed, Mr. Kennedy.
I am pro-safety. I worked for years to raise awareness about the mercury and toxic chemicals in fish, and nobody called me anti-fish. And I believe that that vaccines play a critical role in healthcare. All of my kids are vaccinated. I've written many books on vaccines. My first book in 2014, the first line of it is, I am not anti-vaccine, and the last line is, I am not anti-vaccine. Nor am I the enemy of food producers. American farms are the bedrock of our culture, of our politics, of our national security. I was a 4-H kid, and I spent my summer working on ranches. I went to work with our farmers. I want to work with our farmers and food producers, remove burdensome regulations, and unleash American ingenuity. MAHA simply cannot succeed without a partnership, a full partnership of American farmers. In my advocacy, I've often disturbed the status quo by asking uncomfortable questions. Well, I'm not going to apologize for that. We have massive health problems in this country that we must face honestly. And the first thing I've done every morning for the past 20 years is to get on my knees and pray to God that He would put me in a position to end the chronic disease epidemic and to help America's children. That's why I'm so grateful to President Trump for the opportunity to sit before you today and seek your support and partnership in this endeavor. I will conclude with a promise. The members of this committee, to the President, and to all the tens of millions of parents across America, especially the moms, will propel this issue to center stage. Should I be so privileged as to be confirmed, we will make sure our tax dollars support healthy foods. We will scrutinize the chemical additives in our food supply. We will remove financial conflicts of interest from our agencies. We will create an honest, unbiased, gold standard science at HHS, accountable to the President, to Congress, and to the American people. We will reverse the chronic disease epidemic and put the nation back on the road to good health. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, I will begin. Each of us will have 5 minutes to ask you questions, and then at the conclusion of the hearing, if there are further questions, there will be an opportunity for those questions to be submitted to you, and I ask that you respond to them promptly. Mr. Kennedy, you have emphasized the importance of nutrition in preventing and managing chronic disease, improving health outcomes, and reducing health costs. I share your interest in the relationship between our diet and our well-being. And if confirmed, I look forward to partnering with you on those efforts. Would you share with the committee why you are passionate about the nutrition-oriented disease prevention and what you have learned?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I have 11 brothers and sisters. I have dozens of first cousins. I was raised in a time where we did not have a chronic disease epidemic. When my uncle was president, 2% of American kids had chronic disease. Today, 66% have chronic disease. We spend zero on chronic disease during the Kennedy administration. Today, we spend $4.3 trillion a year. With 77% of our kids cannot qualify for military service. When I was a kid, the typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes in his or her lifetime, 40 or 50-year career. And 1 out of every 3 kids who walks to his or her office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic. And the most recent data from NIH shows 38% of teens are diabetic or pre-diabetic. Autism rates have gone from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 1,500, depending on what studies you look at. In my generation today, 70-year-old men, 1 in 34 in my kids' generation. We've seen this explosion of autoimmune disease, of allergic diseases. This is not just a economic issue. It's not just a national security issue. It is a spiritual issue, and it is a moral issue. We cannot live up to our role as an exemplary nation, as a moral authority around the world, and we're writing off an entire generation of kids.
Thank you very much. And if confirmed, how could we work together to integrate nutrition-based interventions into our healthcare programs like Medicaid and Medicare?
Well, there are many ways that we can do that. A federal funding of the SNAP program, for example, and of school lunch programs could be a driver for helping kids. We shouldn't be giving 60% of the kids in school processed food that is making them sick. We shouldn't be spending 10% of the SNAP program on sugar drinks. So we have a direct ability to change things there. We also, in Medicaid and Medicare, we need to focus more on outcome-based medicine, on putting people in charge of their own health care, of making them accountable for their own health care so they understand the relationship between eating and getting sick. Most importantly, we need to deploy NIH and FDA to doing the research to understand the relationship between these different food additives and chronic disease so that Americans understand it and make sure that Americans are aware. But I don't want to take food away from anybody. If you like a McDonald's cheeseburger or Diet Coke, which my boss loves, you should be able to get them. If you want to eat Hostess Twinkies, you should be able to do.
Just to remind everyone that's watching Rumble, I have the live stream on Rumble. I have the live stream on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I also have a live stream on YouTube. I have X Spaces open, so if you want to ask a question or if you want to give me your opinion about what we're covering today. Today is the Fed announcement, and obviously the big event is the RFK Jr. confirmation hearing. So please make sure you go to my X Spaces on my X channel. It's the larger channel that I have for X Spaces, and request the mic and you'll be able to talk. I'll pass on the mic.
Pay anything to go back in time and not vaccinate your kids. Mr. Kennedy, all of these things cannot be true. So, are you lying to Congress today when you say you are pro-vaccine? Or did you lie on all those podcasts? We have all of this on tape, by the way.
Yeah, Senator, as you know, because it's been repeatedly debunked, that statement that I made on the Lex Friedman podcast was a fragment of the statement. He asked me, and anybody who actually goes and looks at that podcast will see this. He asked me, are there vaccines that are safe and effective? And I said to him, some of the live virus vaccines are. And I said, there are no vaccines that are safe and effective. And I was going to continue for every person. Every medicine has people who are sensitive to them, including vaccines.
Right. So
he interrupted me at that point. I've corrected it many times, including on national TV. You know about this, Senator Wyden. So bringing this up right now is dishonest.
let's be clear about what you've actually done then, since you want to deny your statements. For example, you have a history of trying to take vaccines away from people. In May of 2021, you petitioned the Food and Drug Administration to not only block Americans from having access to the COVID vaccine, but to prevent any future access to the life-saving vaccine. Are you denying that? Your name is on the petition.
We brought that petition after the CDC recommended the COVID vaccine without any scientific basis. For 6-year-old children, most experts agree today, even the people who did it back then, that COVID vaccines are inappropriate for 6-year-old children who basically have a zero risk from COVID. That's why I brought that lawsuit. I don't want to, I'm going to emphasize
Mr. Kennedy,
I don't-
the facts.
To the audience. Comments from the audience are inappropriate and out of order. And if there are any further disruptions, the committee will recess until the police can restore order. Please follow the rules of the committee. Mr. Kennedy, you may proceed.
I also want to point out that your recitation of what happened in Samoa is absolutely wrong, and you know it's wrong, and you know it's wrong.
We'll get to that in a moment. Right now, we're talking about the petition that you filed to block Americans from having access to the vaccine and to prevent any future access to the vaccine. Those facts are on the record. My third question to you is, you made almost $5 million from book deals, mostly promoting junk science. In 2021, in a book called The Measles Book, you wrote that parents had been, quote, misled into believing that measles is a deadly disease and that measles vaccines are necessary, safe, and effective. The reality is measles are in fact deadly and highly contagious, something that you should have learned after your lives contributed to the deaths of 83 people, most of them children, in a measles outbreak in Samoa. So my question here is, Mr. Kennedy, is measles deadly, yes or no?
The death rate from measles historically in this country in 1963, the year before the introduction of the vaccine, was 1 in 10,000. Let me explain what happened in Samoa. In Samoa in 2017 or 2015.
So I'm going to go to X Spaces and pass on the mic. I've passed the mic on if you want to unmic. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? You have the microphone. Hello? Someone is having an issue. Hold on. Let me see if I can. Okay, I'll continue playing. Can you hear? Can you speak now? Hello? Hello? You should be able to speak. You'd have to. You have to.
If my mic is on, I can.
Yeah. So what I have to do is I have to pass on the mic to you, and then you have to do an unmic. You have to turn your mic on. That's how it works on X Spaces. So how you doing?
First time. I'm good. I just got back from a little walk around. This grey and drizzly town.
So Bond,
okay.
so Bond girl. What?
Yeah.
So you're on the show live, right? And you're
Yeah.
So we're streaming on Rumble, we're streaming on YouTube, on my website, and we're covering the hearing. So we'll go in and out with listening to RFK answer questions. Right now, he's being bombasted by by he's being blasted by the Democratic Party, you know, saying that he's anti everything. But what's your take on it? Hey, do you know anything that's going on right now with the RFK Jr. hearing, or what's your opinion on how he's being demonized in the media?
Well, I fully expect him to be absolutely pummeled. They obviously don't want him in, for sure. He's going to do some serious damage. Did you by any chance listen to some of James O'Keefe's undercover reporting about how it was a young chap, I don't know what his name is, he was working in the White House with Biden administration, and he was saying that if RFK gets in, what they will do is they'll just kind of they'll be like, yes, we're doing this and we're going to do this, and basically just kind of frustrate everything.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of put him in a closet and kind of frustrate everything and
slow walk the process. See, this is the problem.
Yeah.
This is and I think this is the reason why Trump decided to do some additional executive orders and canning in individuals. They want to set the standard that the new administration heads of these different agencies, their policies need to be followed within the organization. See, the problem with the deep state is not just who is running the different agencies, but also the political and the administrative class within these agencies in the United States, slow walking policies that are antithetical to what they believe should be. There are a lot of people within HHS that believe a certain thought process, that, you know, they believe, you know, that everything that comes from big pharma is perfect, and unfortunately it's not, and, you know, people are harmed. So, but this is not just with HHS, this is within any agency. The huge problem in the Pentagon, you have all these generals that don't want to change their mindset and how they spend money for certain weapons systems. They're not as efficient.
Yeah.
Some of them become, you know, they jump on this whole woke agenda. Look at what General Miley did. He was pushing a woke agenda at the Pentagon. And not only that, he tried to circumvent Donald Trump during his first administration and talking to the Chinese, saying, oh, well, if we decide to do anything in the Pacific, we'll warn you first. Well, that's circumventing the commander-in-chief. That's treason.
Yeah.
So there's different levels of this administrative rot and slow walking of policy. And I think that Trump has learned from his first administration that you really have to have good leaders that believe in your mission, believe in the cause, that are going to follow the administration's policies and hold people under them accountable if they don't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure by now Trump has not only a plan A but a plan B and a plan C, because he's learned by now how, you know, we're talking about how things get frustrated and slow down, slow walk. He knows all of that by now, so I'm pretty sure he's got plans afoot for when these things come out of the woodwork, you know, and when these people kind of show themselves. You don't really need to have a James O'Keefe undercover reporter to you know, showcase it. These people, through time and through the way they're acting, will show who they are.
Well, I mean, a big part of U.S. media is that it's a advertising revenue business model mostly. I mean, there is a subscription model, but that's small potatoes compared to the actual advertising revenue. And a big part of CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News is revenue is coming from big pharma and big ag and big energy, you know, big oil.
Yeah.
So when you have people within your administration that may be going against certain types of industries like big ag or the pharmaceutical industry. Of course, you know, the mainstream media knows where their bread's buttered, right? And they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them.
Yeah.
So they're just going to keep on pushing this whole agenda. You know, I don't know if this is true or not, but there was a point in time where they were saying that the Pfizer and the Moderna CEOs did not take their vaccines. Well, is that true or not? I don't know. But if it is true, why is it if it's okay for everybody else but not for them? You know, so obviously maybe there's a problem. You know, they probably are privy with information that other individuals of the society are not privy to. So, you know, there's a lot of nefarious things that are happening in these industries, and I think, and then not just that, you know, as you know, I'm, in my 50s, but the thing is, I don't remember when I was a child seeing all the autism and all the diabetes and all the ADHD and I just. There is something definitely happening with our food supply that's affecting the health and well-being of all different types of generations. And you're seeing it very plentiful within the younger generation, the pediatric generation right now. So there's endocrine disruption, and there's, diabetes is, off the charts, obesity at age 10. I mean, I didn't know anyone in elementary school that was obese. Not one person.
No, me neither.
But you go down to usually it's a public school. This is an interesting division in the United States. In the public school, diabetes and these health problems are more rampant. When you go to a private school and you look at the elementary school children, they're a little bit better off in terms of health, but not compared to what it was back in the 70s. So there is a disparity between private school and public school diabetes. There's a difference in the prevalence. So the quality of the food is a big part of it.
Absolutely, and of course, food is a massive hormonal disruptor, and I think that's probably what's kind of not causing the gender identity issues, but adding to it. So it's kind of like if I had my kind of conspiracy head on, I would say, okay, well, you put whatever you need to put in the food, disrupt the hormones, disrupt the food, everyone's going to start to morph and change. And then at the very same time, you push the agenda of, no, it's okay to be whatever you want to identify with. And before you know it, you've got an absolute shit show, for want of a better word. Talking about just disruptors, just going back to your point about the mainstream media, I think you were talking about Big Pharma. I think you obviously must have watched the conference with Trump's, what's her name? She's a young girl. She's about 27, I think, 26 or 27, blonde girl. Speaker.
The Attorney General?
No.
Oh, the secretary. It's the secretary, the press secretary?
Yes, press secretary. That's it. She was inviting in, saying, how things are going to change, and she was inviting in podcasters and people like you, Paul. If they vetted you, and they missed a few things.
If I was actually at the White House doing the press conference, I think the whole internet would shut down.
You would get in there, Paul.
The whole internet would break. But it would be interesting. The rumor is that Alex Jones is actually trying to do that. So maybe certain.
Well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, maybe certain ones. But you know what? I think that alternative news needs some sort of representation and ask questions at these important events like the White House or even the Federal Reserve. And start really asking questions like, well, you're raising these rates, but it's affecting people's well-being. Today is a federal Federal Reserve rate decision. Most likely they'll hold. But there needs to be some sort of representation in the alternative media world where we're asking questions instead of doing meta-analysis on other people's questions. Because right now, access to these officials are hard. It's hard. It's not, it's kind of, it's a closed group that has that access. But I think that just in terms of just a free press, we need more representation. But you don't want it to make it a free-for-all. See, the problem is that you have some people that are in the alt media that's respectful. They have a certain decorum about them, and they will be respectful with their questions. You'll have others that are in the alt media that will be very disrespectful, very loud, just trying to make a point, and that hurts the whole agenda. In terms of getting the alt media represented in some of these big events, like the hearings.
They'll be fated.
Yeah,
they'll be fated really, really hard.
But there's so many people that will go to a conference, let's say a medical conference. They'll find out that a certain person is speaking. They'll go to a medical conference and then they'll, just create ruckus. Very similar to the ruckus that's in the, in the audience during some of the questioning with RFK Jr. Sometimes he'll be answering a question and then all of a sudden people are, screaming stuff in the background. Well, that's, that's against just, good ethical conduct. Let the person speak. Let people have their own opinion, right? But they feel as though they need to make disruption. And usually this happens with a Republican nominee and the crowd that is complaining and creating the ruckus typically is an alt-left movement. But that's not always the case. But we just need the civility. This is the thing that in the United States, the civility has really gone down. And
it's gone down everywhere.
I think a part of it is just, I think social media in general has eroded that level of decorum. Like, people feel that there's a freedom of speech. There is a freedom of speech in the United States, right? But other countries don't have those types of freedoms. There is a freedom of speech, but there's also a freedom to walk on a sidewalk past someone's house, your neighbor or whatever, right? But that doesn't mean you have the right to be, on a bullhorn on the sidewalk screaming at your neighbor all night long, right? There's such a thing as a disruption. So, and just disturbing the peace is how we call it in the United States. So there is such a thing as disturbing the peace within social media. You have this channel and people can, if you do a post on X, people can respond and, hopefully it's civil. But sometimes people take advantage of that and become inflammatory with their rhetoric, or sometimes they just spam it. They spam the post and tries to just spread information from their content. And this is about decorum. This is about this. Where is the common decency? And we're losing that. That when you bring down the barriers where when someone can hide their identity, and then it's a free-for-all on social media where the decorum really drops down, and that dribbles into the real world where you have people that are in the peanut gallery over at the hearing, creating a ruckus to the point where the officers of the House has to remove the guests. So I don't know. I think we need better ethics in society. That's just kind of like the 50,000 foot level of this, but and it's getting worse as time goes on.
I think it's going to start to get better now because I don't think the Democrats have helped that ethical kind of, I think over the last couple of years, with everything that we kind of expect or have accepted and not spoken out against, our morals are going to just kind of go down, and then but because things have changed back again and the pendulum's swinging back again, you'll probably see that those morals will come back. So obviously, if the press secretaries have got a whole bunch of people not from the mainstream media, from alternative media, they've been vetted really well, and they're in there, they know they can trust them. And I think that Trump's plan for that is they're not funded by Big Pharma, so they're not funded by Pfizer. So I think that's why I say, like, he's been saying for years, he's been talking about fake media in the beginning, which was, your ears pricked up and you were like, what does that even mean? And then over time, you've gone, oh, right, okay, that's what that means. And then here we are sitting now.
Well, there's two types of fake media. There is this forceful disinformation, misinformation, and that can be in mainstream media or in alt media.
Yeah,
and
but
then
it
you
depends
have,
on alt media.
And then you
Alt
have,
media.
and then there's another element to it, and that is the agencies using mainstream media to push a certain narrative, certain propaganda. But that's been going on ever since TV, ever since the invention of TV. I think that there's been this slow movement of mind control of the use of the media to try to move people thinking a certain way. It's fascinating to look at old advertisements, like of the 50s or the 60s, and what people were buying. And now you put it in a modern context, it's like you can kind of see almost the mind control that was going on with commercials and marketers. And now, everyone's tied to a screen these days. I mean, Bloomberg this morning, before I started the stream, I was making my coffee, and which is French press. But so I'm drinking my French press coffee, and I'm listening to Bloomberg before the show starts. And they were talking about individuals that are losing attention span to be able to read books. That the average person no longer is reading a book, but if they do read a book, few are actually finishing from cover to cover. They skim it, or they kind of like micro read it. So meaning just pieces of the text. And it's even more prevalent with the younger generation, where they have no attention span to actually pick up a book. So if you want to really test to see if your child is having a problem with attention span, people need to actually do a test and say, here's 50 pages. I want to see you read these 50 pages, and to see how long it takes for them to read it, because I bet their reading speed is poor, but in comprehension. But not just that, they just don't have the attention span to get past 3 or 4 pages. And it's an easy test. It's an easy test to do, to just watch them and see how they fidget. And the moment once you see that fidgeting, they have too much screen time, too much mobile device time. And it's affecting people's attention span and their ability to comprehend complex thoughts. Like a lot of people, they would prefer just give a simple answer to a question. Well, there are other people that prefer a long form. I try to do long form on everything. Now, sometimes I lose track of my thought process when I go on a tangent, but I think long form is a better way of communicating than this short, very terse method of communication. I think it's a less of a I think it's a
Paul does the weave.
Yeah, well, but I think that's a better way to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're adding
go ahead.
screen time, so going back to those kids, right, who can't finish reading 50 pages, and you're adding, okay, right, and you've got all the ADHD and all the autism and all that, and you're adding screen time onto that. You're basically adding mental health issues. I was watching an interview with RFK Jr. and a guy from Good Morning Joe. Joe.
Yeah.
It's Nick and Joe. Hey, I don't know what Joe's name is, but Joe. It's about 20 years ago, and RFK was saying that there was like 1 in 115 cases of autism back then. But now, fast forward 20 years, I think he mentioned something like 1 in 30.
Right.
So you've got that increase, and then you've got the increase in screen time, and then you've got a perfect recipe for meltdowns and perfect recipe for people who can't regulate emotionally, and all kinds of things. I mean, I don't have a diagnosis of autism or anything like that, but I know for me, because of the way I live, I wouldn't be able to read 50 pages to you, and that that is scary.
Yeah, but were you able to read 50 pages back in the day?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, well, if you see that there's a problem, don't you think you need to fix it?
Well,
this is the problem with people is they realize, yeah, that's right, and then they go and then they start scrolling TikTok. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I have attention deficit disorder, and I'm just going to keep on scrolling doom scroll. No, but the thing is that this is why I keep on saying to people that it's all about a holistic approach to health. And if this doom scrolling and everyone is starting to have attention deficit disorders and they're not learning new things that are complex, that needs time to think.
Too much.
Well, what happens is that more and more people are going to have dementia. They're going to have early onset dementia. See, the problem, I want to go back to something that you mentioned a few minutes ago, and that is, I'm not sure that it's additive when it comes to the ADHD, and then you have the social media overuse or the screen time overuse. What I'm starting to think is that it's almost like a catalyst.
Yeah.
Where someone is predisposed to being ADHD through endocrine disruption, and then it really accelerates as a catalyst when you are exposed to high frequency flashing of the screen, or the frequency of the light of the screen, or something like that. So it's not just, well, they have ADHD and then they, so it's just additive. I think it's more, it acts as a catalyst and accelerates the problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and that would make complete, these guys who develop this software, they don't allow their kids to have phones or things, it's they know the addictive, they know how it works. Yeah.
So I'm telling people, stop using screens all day long, but on my show I have like all these screens in front of me all day long. But the thing is that it's really, I really do believe that it's important to force yourself to read a book. Pick a book, whatever you enjoy reading, and read it cover to cover. See how long it takes, and then compare what was it like back decades ago when you were reading. Is the speed faster, slower, comprehension, your attention span? Most likely people will say it's much slower, the attention span's weaker, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, those are data points that are warning you that the path that you're going is the wrong path. The right path is to actually reduce the screen time and focus more on some of the older modalities of learning. Now, screen, we can get information, we can learn things pretty quickly. But the thing is, we also have to maintain our other modalities like reading and writing. A lot of people aren't writing anymore, other than 160, character text message.
Mhm.
And half of the time it's, with all these acronyms that no one knows what they are. But I just, the sad thing I'm seeing in the United States is that the attention span is getting weaker, and people that step out of the system can benefit for their health, but there are going to be also people that are not part of the system, that have stepped out of the system, that are taking advantage of the ones that are in the system, where they have ADHD. And someone that has ADHD, someone that has attention, problems, someone that, isn't really diving into the details of a particular subject, they can be manipulated. Someone outside of the system can manipulate you by just these high frequency modalities.
Yeah.
So, and that's what's happening with like BlackRock. BlackRock is investing lots of money, right? But if they can shift the demand of certain things to benefit their portfolio, they're going to make a lot of money. So now you have a whole sea of individuals that can be easily manipulated through just this high frequency programming that's taking place.
It's mind-boggling. See, even imagine how far. It's like, is it too late? Are we too far down the line to get back to being able to think for ourselves again? Because I've spoken before about how if people have got access to the right information, they can make informed decisions about things. I mean, how it's like. Years ago, I came across Cottrell. He helped me make a decision about certain things that I was going to put into my body via a prick, and I made a decision. But if I didn't have access to that, I would have gone ahead, right? So, but I had the time. I had the time to listen for hours and hours and hours a day to lots of people's opinions. Because I was off work with the injury. Now, people don't have that time. They don't have. They are lucky if they have an hour to. So they have got to really choose where they're going to get their information from, because it's going to affect the decision making. So the way that life is being organized by whoever, the system, the beast, the thing that drives everybody. You're going out to work now. Both mom and dad have to go out to work. Kids are left to get brought up in the system. There's not enough time to come home, cook, get the kids to bed, do it all again tomorrow. Not enough time to get all the information.
Right. I mean, that's true. I mean, people do, especially when they're, people have busy lives and they're taking care of kids, or, they have a career, and they're losing. I think the problem is that humans are becoming less being, and humans are now being more doing. And unfortunately, by being just more doers than beings, our attention span on certain things have really gone down, because we have an immediate need to handle certain things, immediate need to deal with finances, or immediate need to deal with family members or whatever. So, or doing a project for work or whatever it is. And so when someone gets home and they're just they have downtime, they just want to not really learn. They just want to just kind of just kind of just relax. So it causes problems. It's a problem. But I'll tell you, I personally think that if people don't get off of this train that society's on, there's going to be more early onset of dementia. You're going to have a society that has a lower IQ, and you're going to have a society that won't be able to converse in a complex way. Now, maybe I'm a dinosaur now, and I'm like, I'm going to be maybe the last Mohican that can think. I don't know, but the thing is that society it's becoming argumentative, And it's becoming,
Yeah.
if you don't believe what I'm saying, you are all wrong. And, and there's a lot of demonization, and it becomes personal, and it's a lot of ad hominem. But the way I'm looking at life is to say, you got to do things where it's improving your health, like that holistic approach. It's not about just taking a supplement, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about, getting information. You got to move around, and you got to talk to people. And there's not just, someone shouldn't just go and lift weights. That's not health. I'll tell you, a bodybuilder is not a healthy person. But someone that's running a marathon all the time is not a healthy person either.
Yeah.
So it's about balance, right? It's about the idea of, yes, working out is important, but that doesn't mean that you have to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger is not that healthy of a person, even though he was an Olympian.
Yeah.
Now he was on steroids too, and that causes problems too. But because of the high blood pressure of a individual that is a bodybuilder, he ended up having valvular disease and had to have a valve replacement. A lot of these bodybuilders, they literally can't climb up the stairs when they're getting up on stage to flex their muscles. So, they're huffing and puffing when they have to climb, 10 stairs, because their cardiovascular fitness is really poor, but they have a lot of muscle. Now, you start getting into the marathon runners, now you're starting to have joint problems and injuries and, inflammation of running for so long and the training for it. So it's not that healthy. But moderation and looking at things at a holistic level will make people more healthy. If someone just was an egghead and just read books at a table, right? They have all this knowledge and they can read a book really fast. That doesn't mean they're healthy. It means that they're really knowledgeable, right? They have muscle atrophy. They probably have low bone density. And because they're not moving around, they probably have poor cardiovascular fitness. So that's why I keep on saying it's all about a holistic approach to health.
Yeah.
Mental supplements, how you work out, some resistance training, some cardiovascular training, balancing exercises, stretching, sleeping well. But too much sleep is bad. Not enough sleep is bad. See, so it's reaching that middle ground. And a lot of people are not doing that. Some people go, oh, well, I'll get a little older. When I get older, I'll just start, being more healthy. Well, there's this normally they don't, because they have
habits already. Yeah.
Right. Well, there's that organizational inertia. Once you have an inertia to go in the wrong path, it's hard to stop that
Path of
inertia.
least resistance. Yeah. Humans will take that.
Right.
Path
So,
of least resistance.
one of the saddest things, besides seeing my mother die the way she did, but one of the saddest things I've ever seen with a patient is just talking to them, knowing that you can help reverse their diabetes, and literally they did not want to pay attention.
Yeah.
They literally, because
hard.
of lifestyle, because you were asking them to, lifestyle change, lose weight, watch the different glycemic index foods, exercise more. No, what they would rather come in and they go, I got a hip pain now and I got a leg pain, and their BMI is way off the charts, and they have to add additional units of insulin because their diabetes is out of control, and then they start having problems with their eyes, and teeth issues and skin issues and gut problems, and and it all could have been mitigated, if not completely alleviated, by proper lifestyle change. But they don't want to listen. It's the strange thing about patients is most of them either don't want to be compliant, or they just want to solve the problem by popping a pill.
But that's part of their programming. So half of it's their fault, the other half isn't, because they've been programmed for years by the medical industry to, here's a pill for that, here's a pill
I
for
think
that,
it's
here's a
beyond.
pill.
I think that you're right that there, and that this is going back to the JFK thing. He wants to stop the advertisements of big pharma.
Yeah.
Which I think is a smart idea. But it's beyond. I think it's beyond that. I think it goes to people prefer to go to the least resistance on things.
Yeah.
Most people are not stoic, and because of that, they will always, they have a tendency to just pick the easy solution. The easy solution is, what's the immediate problem? They have diabetes, and they can pop up, they can, take insulin to solve it, and maybe watch, certain foods throughout the day and check their blood, all right? Instead of going, well, maybe they should lose the 50 pounds. Maybe they should work out, 3 times a week. Maybe they should stop, drinking as much. And the problem is that a lot of people, I would even say that the binge drinking that goes on in the United States during the late teens, early 20s, especially during the college years or late high school years, the binge drinking causes huge damages to the liver and the pancreas. And so it kicks off down the road of problems with diabetes. So, people just need to start realizing that, hey, your people's choices when they were young and all the way through their adulthood do compound and cause major problems when you're older. I mean, I know people that did not have a healthy lifestyle when they were young, and all of them are now, I'm talking about friends, so now they're in their 50s. All of them have problems. But the ones that stayed healthy throughout their decades, they have they're healthy. They're, as you get older, obviously things pop up, but overall their health is pretty good, especially compared to most people. But it's about proper diet, exercise, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But many people, many people, they're overweight, they're not taking care of themselves, and they're exposed to negativity all the time.
So it's behavioral. What you're talking
Well,
about?
it's a combination of a big part of it. A big part of it's behavioral. I think the epigenetic, the changes the epigenetics of an individual, a big part of it is their lifestyle. So there's this, what are you consuming, and what quantities, but there is this underlying issue with genetics. People have genetic predisposition, but genetic predisposition doesn't mean it doesn't mean 100% fatalism, because the genetic code change. The genetic code can be turned on and off. The body uses methylation and acetylation to turn on and off genes. And so you can see that people that have a better lifestyle will have a better epigenetic profile versus ones that have a poor lifestyle. Even with the person that had a good genetics but poor lifestyle will be unhealthy because of the lifestyle is more weighted. The epigenetic profile is more weighted in terms of health than the actual genetic profile.
Yeah.
Up to a certain point, there's certain genetic disorders that that can pop up very early in age, or whatever. But just because someone has a BRCA gene, for breast cancer, that doesn't mean that they'll get breast cancer. You got to have the epigenetics to have the breast cancer. But it just that with having these certain types of mutations, it increases the chances of having this. And so screening and being more, focused on lifestyle is really important. But there are some women that go, they had the genetic test, and then they end up having, mastectomies right away, even though there's no signs of cancer at all.
Yeah,
There's
no,
prophylactic
that's
mastectomies, and that's I
Yeah.
just think I think that's just a bad, especially with modern technology. I think that's just a bad choice. Back in the early days, where the treatments were really poor, that might have been a better solution prophylactically. But now with the screenings, I think just prophylactic mastectomies, I think that's the bad choice. But there are women that talk about it, even on Fox News. There's a Fox News anchor that I can't remember her name. She's blonde. That said that went right after she had kids, I think it was. She tested, and she had the gene, and did a double mastectomy prophylactically. So
Yeah.
so I just people just need to pay attention, unfortunately. And that's, I think, what RFK Jr. is basically saying to people. Hey, the food you're eating is crap.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what?
Yeah.
Big pharma and big ag prefers it that way. Why? Because big ag can put something on the shelf that can stay on the shelf longer. The shelf life is it is longer, and therefore they can make more profit. There's more margin. If you really look at something that's really good to eat is probably something that doesn't last for very long.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a long shelf life. Anything has a very long shelf life, I think, is like problematic. Other than like maybe the actual source, like grain. You can store grain for years.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. Right.
But you can't store your cereal for years. But most people are eating foods that are just poisonous.
Yeah, it's behavioural. That's what they've been doing. So to change it, but to get people on the right track, you've got to get them off their programming, and you've got to start as young as possible, because you get all the right habits when you're young. Then it sets you up for life. Living in the 80s, like you and I, it was kind of like before the internet. We had that little space of time before the internet where we were outside,
right,
doing stuff, climbing trees.
Right. I think our formative years, you're right. Our formative years were such that we could carry on good habits behaviors into our adulthood, and not be exposed to as many of the problems. Now, there are people within our cohort group, our generation, that didn't do that, and they picked a poor lifestyle. And because they picked that poor lifestyle, they're either dead or they're having a lot of problems now. These are the people that had alcohol and drug abuse issues, and all this stuff. And that was definitely that was a problem in the Gen X too. But I think you're right. There are probably, when you compare other generations, Gen X is like in that sweet spot where you can see that the beginning of the shift and what was going on in society. And some people were somewhat insulated by that shift because of their upbringing. But health is really, and even the quality. I noticed with eating New York. I mean, New York has lots of restaurants, nice restaurants, expensive restaurants, but the quality of the food isn't. I can make food. I can make homemade food much higher quality.
Yeah,
they do.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm noticing that I don't even, because I eat so well, that when I do eat something outside, at a restaurant or whatever, I notice that I notice as I'm tasting it that it's not as good. But not just that, 24 hours later, my body doesn't feel as it's running on good fuel. It's like putting like low octane gasoline in your car.
Yeah.
Versus high octane gas in your car. But the body does tune itself. The body does tune itself and benefits from higher quality foods.
And especially if you've been doing it for a long time, your body is going to instantly tell you, yes, no, 3 bags full. But if you've been eating junk for a long time, you're not going to be so, you're going to miss those.
Have you seen the pictures of, are you familiar with Pringles? The
Oh, yeah,
potato
yeah,
chips?
yeah.
Have you seen
Yeah.
the videos on TikTok of people putting Pringles underneath a microscope?
No, pray
Well,
tell.
if you do see that, you'll never buy it. You'll never eat a Pringle again. It has all these little bugs on it.
No way.
Yeah.
What kind of bugs? I mean,
don't know.
because it's so
It's
processed.
absolutely disgusting. It's disgusting. Disgusting. Absolutely. I would never, ever, 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 ever touch a Pringle ever again. Same thing with Oreos. Oreos has a problem. Doritos has a problem. So these yeah. So
I would imagine bugs wouldn't go near that stuff because it's so synthetic. What they're gonna feel.
No, you got, but you can
Although,
see it. But
saying
it's
that,
really
there are those
microscopic. It's really, these are microscopic. There
are those petroleum eating bugs. I don't know if you heard of that. There was something about this. Somebody had found there was a certain bacteria that could eat oil or plastics over time.
When I was in engineering school, I remember in my chemistry class. Now this is years ago. I remember the TA for the lab was talking about that they were engineering bacteria that would help with eating oil and eating plastic.
Yeah, that's it.
Now this is in the early 90s. Okay? So now, the research obviously has expanded, but there are bacteria now that will eat plastics, degrade plastics, that's true, and degrade oil. But yeah.
So maybe you've got similar bugs on the Pringle.
Well, maybe. But the thing is that, the point here is that highly processed foods aren't healthy. At first, the ingredients that are in the processed foods are unhealthy, and these microscopic organisms that are floating around on it, crawling on it, you definitely don't want that in your body. I mean, even if they, all foods have bacteria on it. When you cook it, you kill it, right? But the thing is that when you're eating these processed foods out of a bag, it's been on a shelf for months, typically, and just during the manufacturing process, there are pathogens that are on it. There are these microscopic organisms that are on it that grow. And so that Dorito tastes good with that salsa, while you're watching a football game, and then all of a sudden you're not feeling right. Your stomach doesn't feel good, and it's like, and it's a combination of, it's oversalted, it's bad ingredients because of the shelf life, and the microscopic organisms that are all over the damn thing. And so your body is like saying, why are you poisoning me? But it tastes good. So it tricks the brain to do something bad. Just like social media tricks the brain to do something bad.
Programming. So I think RFK is on the right track, because I think with getting big pharma ads off, I think he knows we're all programmed. So he's got to get rid of the programming in order to change the behavior, because you can't do it the other way around. And we've been programmed for a long, long, long time. A long time. I mean, like you're talking, about the ads back in the day. I mean, not our day, but our parents' day. My mother, when she had me and my brother, they had ashtrays in the maternity ward.
Right.
And so all the new mums was there smoking with their newborns. So, and then all the ads.
Well, back in the day, I bet that some of the the obstetricians were probably smoking while they were delivering the baby.
Yeah. So, and you can't tell me, I've always said this, you cannot tell me that they did not know back then that that was going to be bad for you. I just think that someone knew that this isn't a good thing, but hey, we're going to do it anyway. You know, a little bit like the seed oils. It's like someone thought, right, we've got all the seed oil left over from, you know, putting it on machines. What are we going to do with it? Oh, let's sell it, you know. And someone was like, yeah, but that's not going to be good for you. And someone's like, well, no. So, you know, there's been, I don't think it's ignorance. I don't think that people have been that ignorant over time. We have been as consumers, but the people who are in charge of the food and the drug industry, they have not been ignorant. I no trust, like, as you know, non-zero, like minus into the minus percentages of trust I have with the whole medical industry. I think they've known things from the very beginning about what's being good and what's being bad for us.
Right. I think that, well, I think there's still different elements of the medical industry. You know, there's the training, you know, the schools, the education side of it. There is the research side. There is the pharmaceutical side. There's the marketing side. There's the agencies that are governing. And so it's, you know, the devil's in the details of what's going on. The training training. See, the problem is that in science, especially in medicine, there's a hubris. There's this thought process that, and they have good intentions, but the thought process is that they know better. And they're not fully appreciating negative feedback loops. All right. And so they think they understand the immune system, but they really don't. I mean, we only know the immune system in it. Our knowledge is in its infancy in terms of the immune system. So we don't really fully appreciate the complexity of what we're messing around with. Then you add in big money, you know, in finance with big pharma. Mm-hmm. And so they might not do a clinical trial that's as robust as it should be. Maybe because of cost savings, maybe because it would prevent that particular therapy from being issued. You have a regulatory capture by big pharma with, let's say, the FDA. So what I mean by that is that people that are approving the drug are captured by big pharma because the people that are approving the drug are given positions on boards when they leave FDA. So they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them, right? So they're going to say, oh, we'll pass that drug. Oh, maybe there'll be a problem in, you know, several years, and then maybe we'll have to cut the dosage or take it off the market. But you already made your billions, you know. So there's this regulatory capture that has happened, which is a big problem. There are research journals that aren't publishing counter arguments to certain things. They're only pushing a certain narrative. That's right. So there's these captures that take place. So, you know, one big lesson learned that I saw with medical school was that many of the professors, not all professors, but many of the professors, once they get their sheepskin and they've professed for years and practiced, they have this thought that they know better. And they're not really fully appreciating that there are things that get introduced into the system, the social system or the biological system, that's new, that can cause disruption in the system, and they don't fully appreciate that. This is what I mean by the negative feedback loop, which is definitely what happened during 2020. So there's this hubris, but there are other ones that are wise enough. It's usually older physicians. They're wise enough to realize that our body of knowledge is great, but our body of knowledge has porosity. And so because it has porosity, our full understanding of the system is not complete. And therefore, we have to be humble and be able to admit that, you know, sometimes when certain types of medication is given to a certain group of people, there are these negative effects. But sometimes you have to weigh it, the positive effects of something with the negative. So you have, so another dynamic here is just that you have a population that's not very scientific. So you have the hubris of the scientific world.
Yep.
But you also have a large population that's not scientific. And so everything, so if a drug, if a therapy has a side effect, they assume that it's all bad. Well, that's not necessarily the case. That, you know, there are side effects and you have to weigh the benefits. Is there a benefit with the medication? If there is a benefit, then what's the side effects? Is the benefit better than the side effect? Now with big pharma, you know, now we're talking about patients that have already gotten to the point where they have a disease that perhaps could have been preventable through lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now you're trying to solve a problem that could have been mitigated early on. Now, medical students, the medical profession, big pharma doesn't want to promote healthy living. They just want to promote, you have a disease and here is a medication for the disease. Here's a therapy for the disease. It's a disease model, not a health model. And that's where and so if people are really healthy, big pharma isn't going to make a bunch of money on insulin.
Yep.
Big money, you know, they're not going to make a bunch of money on statins. So the way the model is set up, they need to have a population that's diseased.
Exactly. So RFK has got some very, very big elephants that he's going to have to come up against. Like, because it's everywhere. It's drugs, it's food, it's, you know, he's got a big, he's
right. No,
the educational system, everything. I mean, you know, going back to what you were saying about it, you've got the people who are captured at the top, and then on the lower levels, you've got the people who are being trained, the students, and they've been taught what the top, you know, that's coming down. The new studies aren't coming out, so they don't have access to them. So you could sit there and you could say no about this, and they just look at you and they say no, but you have to have more fluoride in your toothpaste. And I just get to the stage where I just nod and go, okay. Meanwhile, I'm going to go home and I'm going to, don't think so, mate.
Yeah, I just, you know, here, most students that were in my cohort group, most of them bought the whole line and sinker of the new technology that was coming from Moderna. They believed in it, and they, you know, most, you know, and they all. But the thing is that they didn't fully understand what it meant from a manufacturing point of view, what it meant in terms of something new in the body that hasn't been fully tested. They had hubris because they're trained to take a test, not trained to treat disease. They're trained and you know, they're trained to, like, okay, take a test and here, if a patient presents this way, this is what you do. That's how they train students. So if a student fights the system and they go, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense, but that's the answer on the exam. You know, so what happens is you're training a group that has, you're training a crop of medical students that have groupthink. They have this groupthink, and then if you have someone else, either outside of the community or inside the community, saying a different, having a different narrative, they are considered a pariah because that's not on the test. That's not in the professional conduct of our institution or whatever. You know, so, you know, students, you know, there's a hubris. There's a hubris at the professor level. There's a hubris at the overall scientific publishing level, and there's a hubris that's taking place even with the students. There's not enough people asking why and what, and they're just being spoon-fed, and they make it so hard, so expensive that you capitulate and you don't even care anymore, and you just become programmed. It's very regimental. The way medical training in the United States is it's very regimental. There are not enough people thinking. There's not enough people thinking. too many people just regurgitating.
Following, yeah.
And so it causes problems. It's like, well, and the way that the physicians will go, well, they do a treatment, patient's not responding. Obviously, probably the diagnosis is wrong, but they'll go, well, we don't know what the issue, we don't know how to solve it. There's a lot of people are falling into these realms, and there's patients that have, maybe a rare disease or whatever, and they don't get enough attention because it's rare and it's not on a test. It's rare and it's unknown on how to deal. So they can't think out of the box. Physicians have a tendency to not be able to think out of the box.
I was told those very words by my own GP here in England, because I have a quite a rare condition, and I ask a lot of questions, and I try and get the right answer. And so I knocked heads with her quite a few times, because I would be like, no, but you're not listening to me, this or whatever it is, or that, or that. And it got to the point where she came back to me and she said that the way it works here is you've got something called the NICE guidelines. And it's like little levels. So you start off at level 1, maybe if it's MSK, musculoskeletal thing, you'll start off with physio, then you'll move up to maybe injections, you'll move up to surgery at the very last level. But along that journey, you've got these boxes that they put you into. So they put you into that box, and then you get that treatment, painkillers, or this box, you get that. So when someone like me comes along, and I'm like a zebra, okay, they don't know what box to put me in, and so they can't help me. Mm-hmm. So she basically said, if they can't put you into a box, they don't know what to do with you. Mm-hmm. And I stood there as a patient going, well, where the F am I supposed to go from here? Mm-hmm. It was quite something, but I appreciated her and I respected her for being so honest with me.
Rare birds don't get treated. That's one problem.
They don't,
and then a lot of times the people that are getting treated are being misdiagnosed and getting the wrong treatment. But the medical system is broken, and to lower cost and to get people healthy, it's about early screening and it's about change of lifestyle. You get the biggest bang for your buck in society, not huge cancer research with chemotherapy, not trying to have a disease model. The whole idea is to focus on prevention and early detection. That's where the biggest bang for your buck is in terms of reducing healthcare costs and getting better outcomes. There's no better answer than that. But the thing is that doesn't pay well. That doesn't translate well in the financial markets with biotech and big pharma, because their stocks would crash.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have their pension in these stocks. A lot of ETF flows are based on these stocks. A lot of the economy is based on these stocks. The ad revenue, at least in the United States, for many media outlets, it's big pharma. So they're going to lose huge chunks of their revenue and have to lay off, tons of people because big pharma is collapsing if we were on a health model and not a disease model. So it's a major problem. It's a big problem, and it's sad to see. Hopefully that RFK Jr. will get confirmed, and we'll have maybe a healthier America. But it's not going to. America's not going to get healthy in 4 years. This is the beginning of a long process.
Yeah.
To be able to stop the endocrine disruption, reduce the ADHD, and have to have a healthier society. I'm sure that my brother's heart disease was a direct cause of just poor diet and exercise, even though there was family predisposition for it, but not paying attention to your weight. And he was a fast food eater and all this stuff, and drinking lots of pop and drinking,
get stressed,
and eating, bread, so it was all, processed sugars and, high carbohydrate diet. And, that it killed him. It literally killed him. But
he was quite young, wasn't he? He was about, he was
36.
40 years old.
36.
Yeah. Gosh, that is young. Okay.
But this was common on my mother's side of the family. I mean, I had an uncle that died at 35, and I had another uncle that died at 46. And the other uncle that died at the uncle that died at 46,
same issue.
he was overweight, but he worked out by doing racquetball. All right, so he wasn't that bad, but he had very high stress. He didn't know how to control his stress. So stress is a big factor. And his best friend that he died in front of was a cardiologist that was the head of cardiology at U of M, at the University of Michigan. So the head of cardiology at the University of Michigan was his best friend, and it was his either next door neighbor or the neighbor next to him. His name was Stan. And he was playing racquetball with him and saw my uncle die in front of him. Basically, his heart blew out when he was playing racquetball in front of his best friend that was the head of cardiology at U of M. So, he was exercising, but he also had this problem with, what he was eating. He was a little overweight, but not that bad, but he had huge stress levels. So,
cortisol.
It causes that inflammation. It causes the high cortisol levels chronically cause inflammation, build up more plaque, and by building up more plaque, that leads to cardiovascular disease and puts too much pressure on the heart. And back then, this was the mid 80s, early 80s. I guess it was early 80s, and the medication for the cardiac medication was in its infancy. They were just playing around with beta blockers. They didn't know how to use beta blockers at that time. And then, the surgery was bypass, and it was open chest bypass. So, I mean, so the complications were even larger. They didn't have stents back then. They didn't have, angioplasty or anything like that we have today. So, so it was like it was near the cardiac medication was in its infancy. They didn't really know how to use it that well. And then the preventions, the cardiac intervention type stuff, wasn't developed yet. It was only bypass. Bypass was really the only solution if you had clogged artery.
Yeah.
And even the ultrasounds weren't that good. You didn't have the Doppler or anything like that. So, but So what we should do is we should listen a little bit of Kennedy speaking right now, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So you can stay, stay online, but just mute the mic so you don't get any feedback.
Will do.
Okay.
Will do.
And then.
All right.
And then maybe you can come back on and talk if you want. All right.
Well, yeah, unless somebody else wants to come in. Yeah, if someone else wants to come in, just let me know and I'll.
Yeah.
I'll
Okay.
But
All right. I'm gonna go back to the hearing right now.
All right.
Finally live up to GMA's mission of serving, of providing personnel to rural hospitals. And I intend to use all my power because I've seen the priority that is given by both Democrats and Republicans on this committee. I intend to make that a priority if I'm privileged to be confirmed.
I appreciate it, because often with financial strains on the local hospital, one of the common services to be cut in rural hospitals and maternity services. So now we have women in Wyoming having to drive over 100 miles to access care. 13 counties in Wyoming don't have access to OB. And we're talking counties larger than the states of Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, counties larger than those whole states. So will you commit to working with my office to find solutions to help address these specific maternal health challenges in rural America.
Yes, Senator, I look forward to it.
Another issue we specifically spoke about was this harmful Biden administration rule that had really been bad for our rural nursing homes. And it's a rule that would triple the registered nurse requirements in nursing homes. This is going to lead, there just aren't enough registered nurses in our state to be able to comply with this. This would lead to nursing home closures across our state. Will you commit to work with me to fix this serious problem that was a result of a rule that came out by the Biden administration, who clearly doesn't understand rural America?
Yes, Senator, I think the rule was well-intentioned. But as you've said, and I've heard from many rural senators, it will be a disaster for their states. Some of the nursing homes, these are staffing rules that require 24-hour staffing by medical professionals. Some of the nursing homes in rural areas simply do not have the available personnel or the economics to be able to do that. It will mean the closure of nursing homes in rural areas across our country, which means the parents, elderly parent, will be moved a great distance from the local community and their family. And we know that the single greatest driver of high quality nursing home care is the involvement, the proximity of family members. When you move that nursing facility away from the community where the kids live, you're going to get much worse care. So the intention, although it was noble, was in reality, for rural areas at least, it is going to be a disaster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Johnson.
Mr. Kennedy, welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your decades-long advocacy for a clean environment, for children's health. I can't say as I'm surprised by the hostility on the other side. I'm highly disappointed in it. I don't know if you remember when you called me up and you were contemplating setting your political differences aside, joining forces with President Trump on an area of agreement, addressing chronic illness, trying to find the root cause of all these problems facing this nation. My first response was, Bobby, this is an answer to my prayers. We need to get to the answers of this, but even more, we need to heal and unify this divided nation. I'm not necessarily the most optimistic guy because we've got enormous challenges facing this nation, but I thought, wow, here's somebody from the left, somebody I don't agree with on many issues politically, coming together with President Trump and focusing on an area of agreement, something that the American people desperately want. Finding out the answers. What has caused autism? What is causing chronic illness? Ms. Kennedy, I think I've come to know what's in your heart. I think I know the personal and political price you've paid for this decision. I want to say publicly, I thank you for that. I truly appreciate what you're doing here. Can't we come together as a nation and do this? Can we do? Aren't you getting tired of this? I'm getting tired of this. So again, Mr. Kennedy, I need to enter in the record. These are just 11 letters of support signed by 63,000 people, thousands of doctors. From the American Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, Independent Medical Alliance, the North Carolina Physicians and Freedom Group, Governor Jeff Landry from Louisiana. These are Americans, nonpartisan. A lot of these people I know because I've advocated with you. A lot of them are Democrats. They put their political differences aside. So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter this in the record.
Without objection.
I also do want to, Mr. Kennedy, as long as I have you here, I've written over 70 oversight letters to the federal health agencies under the Biden administration. I've virtually gotten squat out of them, okay? What I get is we get, for example, 50 pages of Anthony Fauci's emails redacted. Oh, by the way, the latest one was 17 pages. Instead of issuing a health alert on the myocarditis they knew was impacting young men early in 2021, instead of issuing an alert on the Health Alert Network, they developed 17 pages of talking points. This was given to the public under a FOIA request. They had to go to court. They've got a new way of redacting. They don't black things out. They just give you white pages. So you don't even know what they have redacted. So again, I've issued a subpoena now to cover the information I've requested in 70 oversight letters. My question to you is, as Secretary of HHS, will you honor these requests from Congress and will you make HHS transparent?
Yeah, my approach to HHS, as I said before, Senator, is radical transparency. Democrats and Republicans ought to be able to come in and get information that was generated at taxpayer expense, that is owned by the American taxpayer. They shouldn't get redacted documents. Public health agencies should be transparent. And if we want Americans to restore trust in the public health agencies, we need transparency. I want to say something about what you first said. When I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, depression, all of these things that are related to toxic to the environment? Why can't we just agree with each other? Put differences about so many issues, intractable issues aside, and say, we're going to end this. I don't think anybody is going to be able to do this like I am because of my peculiar experience, because I've litigated against these agencies. When you litigate against them, you get a Ph.D. in corporate capture and how to unravel it. I've written 6 books about these agencies. I know a lot about them and I know how to fix it. And there's nobody who will fix it the way that I do because I'm not scared of vested interest. I don't care. I'm not here because I want a position or a job. I have a very good life and a happy family. This is something I don't need. I want to do.
Yeah, I've been taking care of this field for 20 years.
There we go again.
And for 20 years, I've asked myself the same question. Why did the field go?
A caliber of people to HHS like never before in history. And they're entrepreneurs, they're disruptors, they're innovators of immense talent that are walking away, many of them from growing concerns. They're not coming there for position. They're coming there because they want to save our country. And they're from across the political spectrum. And all these Democrats are opposed to me for partisan issues. They used to be my friends. Agree with me on all the environmental issues that I've been working on for my whole career. Now they're against me because anything that President Trump does, any decision he makes, has to be lampooned, derided, discredited, marginalized, vilified.
We need to move on. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Kennedy, I want to start with something that I think you and I agree on, and that is that Big Pharma has too much power in Washington. You said that President Trump asked you to, quote, clean up corruption and conflicts. Sounds great. You said that you will, quote, slam shut the revolving door between government agencies and the companies they regulate. That also sounds great. So here's an easy question. Will you commit that when you leave this job, you will not accept compensation from a drug company, a medical device company, a hospital system, or a health insurer for at least 4 years, including as a lobbyist or a board member?
Can you just repeat the last part of the question? What can I commit?
You're not going to take money from drug companies in any way, shape, or form.
Me?
Yes, you.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to commit to that.
Okay, good, that's what I figured. I said it's an easy question to start with. And I think you're right on this.
I don't think any of them want to give me money, by the way.
Let's keep going. You're right, because to say yes, because every American has the right to know that every decision you make as our #1 health officer is to help them and not to make money for yourself in the future. So I want to talk more about money. I'm looking at your paperwork right now. In the past 2 years, you've raked in $2.5 million from a law firm called Wisner Baum. You go online, you do commercials to encourage people to sign up with Wisner Baum to join lawsuits against vaccine makers. And for everyone who signs up, you personally get paid. And if they win their case, you get 10% of what they win. So if you bring in somebody who gets $10 million, you walk away with $1 million. Now, you just said that you want the American people to know you can't be bought. Your decisions won't depend on how much money you could make in the future. You won't go to work for a drug company after you leave HHS. But you and I both know there's another way to make money. So, Mr. Kennedy, will you also agree that you won't take any compensation from any lawsuits against drug companies while you are secretary and for 4 years afterwards?
Well, I'll certainly commit to that while I'm secretary. But I do want to clarify something because you're making me sound like a shill. I put together that case. I did the Science Day presentation to the judge on that case to get it into court.
Mr. Kennedy, it's just a really simple question.
Yeah.
You've taken in $2.5 million. I want to know if you will commit right now that not only will you not go to work for drug companies, you won't go to work suing the drug companies and taking your rake out of that while you're secretary and for 4 years after. It's just.
I'll commit to not take any fees from drug companies while I'm secretary.
No, I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies.
No,
and I'm
you
not
can
going to agree
sue
to that.
drug
Senator.
companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
So let's do a quick count here of how, as secretary of HHS, if you get confirmed, you can influence every one of those lawsuits. Well, let me start the list. You could publish your anti-vaccine conspiracies, but this time on U.S. government letterhead, something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint people to the CDC vaccine panel who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. You could tell the CDC vaccine
You
panel
can almost see that Senator Warren from Massachusetts, Senator Warren is being bought by Big Pharma to try to demonize RFK Jr. because they're worried that someone might be cutting them off where there's a lot of the profits for these pharmaceutical companies are. Just demonize. That's what Warren's doing. Demonize. I'd like to know where her investments are. Did she invest in these big pharma companies for her portfolio? Because she's a multimillionaire now.
And I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you do as secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all of the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You and I, you have said
You're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine.
No, I am not.
Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
Look, no one should be fooled here. As secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids. The bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might
Or
die.
Senator Warren, could keep on pushing the agenda of the big pharma, and big pharma makes billions and billions and billions. Where do you think the more ethical heart of the argument is? Obviously, the ability to sue these pharmaceutical companies if they cause harm is warranted, for sure. And they've been hiding under these protection clauses on top of Senator Warren's making money in the stock market. Where's her investments? I am sure some of it's in biotech.
Conflict in light of its functions and the nominee's proposed duties. And we have a letter from the Office of Government Ethics that he hasn't complied completely with all applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest.
Mr. Chairman, point of information here. Have we had a single nominee come through who's made $2.5 million off suing one of the entities that it would be regulating and plans to keep getting a take of every lawsuit?
Just remember how much Moderna made during the crisis, how much Pfizer made during the crisis. What about the new amount of money that Moderna received for development of an H5, H7 inoculation? We need to pay attention to the big picture here. I don't really care about how many millions he made suing Big Pharma. I think we need people to sue Big Pharma because Big Pharma is out of control.
So far, so good.
Good. You came prepared, and I'm glad that you did. You, I believe, addressed to my satisfaction a question about Title X and the president's priority with respect to Planned Parenthood. Can you just affirm that you are 100% behind the president's policy on Title X and the implementation?
100% behind it.
Thank you. It's amazing to me that people, well, first off, you need to understand I was in a judiciary hearing this morning. It's very clear to me that some of these nominations are going to be shirts and skins. So no matter what you answer in the affirmative, they're going to ask you one more question so that you won't be able to answer in the affirmative. That's just the way the game gets played when we have nominees like yourself. So I think you're handling yourself well. I got a real quick question for you. Are you a conspiracy theorist?
That is a pejorative, Senator, that's applied to me, mainly to keep me from asking difficult questions of powerful interest. I was told that I was a conspiracy theorist. That label was applied to me because I said that the vaccines, the COVID vaccine, didn't prevent transmission and wouldn't prevent infection, when the government was telling people, Americans, that it would. I was saying that because I was looking at the monkey studies in May of 2020. I was called a conspiracy. Now everybody admits it. I was called a conspiracy theorist because I said red dye caused cancer. And now FDA has acknowledged that and banned it. I was called a conspiracy theorist because I said fluoride lowered IQ. Last week, JAMA published a meta-review of 87 studies saying that there's a direct inverse correlation between IQ loss.
All right, so I'm going to assume
I can go on for a week.
Is there any one of them that you can say, you got me? That really was a conspiracy theory, or are you in a position to submit for the record? I think it'd just be helpful for every one of these narratives for you to submit that maybe for the record. You said something about snack lunch. I was in the State House in North Carolina before I came here. And anytime I go visit an elementary school, the first thing I would do is go to the trash cans in the cafeteria. And what we have now are kids that are not eating the food because the dictates of the federal government have made it something that they don't want.
We are going to switch the feed now because we want to be able to show you the senator who is talking alongside RFK Jr. So we're going to switch the feed right now. It might be delayed for just a little bit as there might be some sort of time difference. We're going to do that right now as we continue to listen in.
Is there any one of them that you can say, you got me? That really was a conspiracy theory, or are you in a position to submit for the record? I think it'd just be helpful for every one of these narratives for you to submit that maybe for the record. You said something about SNAP lunch. I was in the State House in North Carolina before I came here. And anytime I'd go visit an elementary school, the first thing I would do is go to the trash cans in the cafeteria. And what we have now are kids that are not eating the food because the dictates of the federal government have made it something that they don't want. But they say, well, it's a healthy alternative. It has processed materials in it, and it's not particularly attractive to them. So they throw it away. Trash cans full of food that these kids didn't eat. So then what do? They go eat snacks, or they go eat or they drink a sugar drink. The SNAP program, everything you said about the SNAP program, I agree with. I think that we should be very, very strict about that. And it's going to make some people uncomfortable in the food manufacturing segment, produce healthy foods that we can put in the SNAP program. That's the way to address it. But we also need to look at the school health program. I was PTA president 21, 22 years ago at my daughter's high school. And I feel like we've got these kids that need help. We've got to guide them through a process. Many of them are probably on Medicaid, and Medicaid's failing them. Everybody here says Medicaid is sacrosanct. Nobody's admitted that Medicaid is not producing positive health outcomes. Is that your problem with Medicaid right now? The program or the outcomes?
It's the outcomes. We're spending $900 billion. Our people are getting sicker every single year.
Yeah. So anybody
President Trump wants people to have Americans to have a high quality insurance.
Anybody who's building a case for the status quo of Medicaid is by extension saying that they're happy with the outcomes. I think it's unacceptable. I do have a question for you on Project Warp Speed. We supported the CARES Act. We had 97 people in the U.S. Senate vote for it. Everybody here, there's only one member of Congress that voted against it, I believe. And Project Warp Speed had CDC, FDA, NIH, and BARDA very much in the mix. Now, some people think that you're going to come in here and insert yourself into those agencies in a way that's never been done before. Let's say that they're a part of a future Project Warp Speed. Is it your intent to go in and do something that's never been done before based on my staff's research and insert yourself in a discussion that the scientists are dealing with in those different agencies?
No, Senator, what I want to do is, I'm not a scientist. I want to empower scientists. I want to make sure that science is unobstructed by vested or economic interest.
That's good.
I got that culture, and I'll just say about Operational Warp Speed, it was an extraordinary accomplishment, demonstration of leadership by President Trump. When he promoted Operation Warp Speed, he was looking at all of the different remedies, including vaccines,
therapeutics,
therapeutic, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, famotidine, and chlorine dioxide, and he was not looking at shutting down our country for the year, forcing people to wear masks for a year, forcing all social distancing that did not have any scientific basis, which Dr. Fauci has now acknowledged. He said we took it out of thin air. But all of those changed during the Biden administration, and it became very narrowly focused. We ended up with the worst, highest death count of any country in the world.
Mr. Chair, if I can just ask one final question, I think it's a one-word answer. I've heard a lot of people complaining about healthcare delivery, Medicaid. On the other side of the dais here, who's been responsible for healthcare policies over the last 4 years?
The Biden.
I mean, the president, the Biden. Okay. Yeah. So I'd like to have heard more of those in oversight hearings over the last 4 years. I haven't, but I'm glad that there's an acknowledgement that you're inheriting a problem that needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kennedy, thanks for being with us. I very much
like the slogan that you coined, Make America Healthy Again. And I strongly agree with that effort. Despite spending, as you indicated, 2 or 3 times as much per capita on healthcare as other nations, we have 85 million people who are uninsured, underinsured. We have all kinds of chronic illnesses. Our life expectancy is lower than other countries. And for working class people in this country, they are living 6, 7 years shorter lives than the top 1%. Okay, and I'm gonna suggest some ideas that I think can remedy that.
All right, so I do want to switch the feed as we now have our split screen back. Let's listen in.
You can't.
I'm sorry, I looked for an hour with you. We got a few minutes left here. All right. Every other country in us says healthcare, whether you're poor or rich, younger, old, human life. I'm not hearing you say that. All right, you talked about the drug companies, and maybe we agree on this one. As you all know, despite the drug companies making over $100 billion in profits, paying CEOs outrageous compensation packages, we in some cases pay 10 times more for the same drug. Will you support legislation that I will introduce, which says that in America we should not be paying a nickel more for prescription drugs than people around the rest of the world? Yes, no?
To equalize it.
Not to equalize it, that we should not be paying more than other countries for the same damn drugs.
President Trump has asked me, in fact, I had a meeting with President Trump a week ago where we showed him the charts.
He knows the charts.
We're paying 10 times more from Europe.
That's right. And are you going to commit to us that you will end that absurdity?
I think in principle we can. We should end that disparity.
Good. Okay, that's great. All right. I happen to believe that climate change is real, it's an existential threat, and it is a healthcare issue. Donald Trump thinks that it is a hoax originating in China.
I gotta just chime in. How do you prevent a volcano from going off somewhere in the world that totally offsets anything that you try to do in terms of carbon capture or carbon emissions reduction? If the earth belches, it offsets all those things that you tried that cost billions of dollars to do. The earth is going to belch. There's going to be, so I'm not really sure that we can control this issue. If the earth wants to have a volcano go off, or if there's fires, think about this. The problems that we have with all the fires in California, think about all that carbon that's going out into the atmosphere now. Tons of carbon. Totally offsets any of the gains that California did with fossil fuel emission. You can't control Mother Nature.
Choice. Now, I think everybody on that side is pro-life. I think everybody is pro-choice. I have never seen any major politician flip on that issue quite as quickly as you did when Trump asked you to become HHS secretary. Tell me why you think people should have confidence in your consistency and in your word when you really made a major U-turn on an issue of that importance in such a short time.
Senator, I believe, and I've always believed, that every abortion is a tragedy.
But you told the people of New Hampshire that it was their right. All right, let me do a last question because I'm running out of time. I think the gist of what you're trying to say today is you're really pro-vaccine, you want to ask questions. You have started a group called the Children's Health Defense. You're the originator. Right now, as I understand it, on their website, they are selling what's called onesies. These are little things, clothing for babies. One of them is titled Unfacts, Unafraid. Next one, and they're sold for $26 a piece, by the way. Next one is No Vax, No Problem. Now you're coming before this committee and you say you're pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26
which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will?
No, let's just Sanders is asking the question, but he's complaining about two things: that it costs too much, he wants it cheaper, and two, he wants to suppress your freedom of speech. You should be able to buy any type of clothing to say "fuck you" to the government. And if you want to spend more than $26, it should be your right.
Militarily anti-vaccines.
I am supportive of vaccines. I want good science and I want to protect.
But you will not tell the organization you founded not to continue selling that product. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Blackburn.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much for being with us today. And I have no doubt that you will be confirmed and you are going to do such a solid job for the people of this country.
Just to remind the audience, the ones that are watching on Rumble in the live feed, you can join X Spaces and ask a question. Also, the ones that are watching the YouTube feed, please join in to the X Spaces to ask a question or tell me your opinion on what's going on in today's hearing. And the ones that are watching on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, don't be afraid to join. Anyone that is in X Spaces that would like to ask a question, just request the mic and I'll pass it on.
Focuses on work shortages, and also Senator Warner and I have together focused on making certain that we address the area wage index and do that fairly for our citizens that are in rural communities. So I would like a commitment from you that when confirmed, you and your CMS administrator will work with us to make certain that the area wage index is balanced and that it is fair to rural areas.
Senator Bowles, Dr. Oz, and myself recognize that rural health care is a crisis in this country, and that is catastrophic for our entire country. And I talked a little bit about my commitment to rural health earlier in this hearing. The regional price points, as you know, are set by Congress and not by HHS. I will certainly, I know Dr. Oz will certainly work with you to make them sensible.
We look forward to that. Also, you and I, before you came forward as the secretary, the nominee, we had talked in years past about over-medicating youth and concerns over that. And I was looking at a report from TennCare, which is our Medicaid program in Tennessee. And I was concerned when I saw a number that TennCare had spent $90 million in 2024 alone on ADHD. This was 417,000 of our children. And $90 million, to me, that is heartbreaking, what is happening there. So how will you prioritize oversight of prescribing practices while promoting alternative solutions such as counseling, behavioral therapies, community-based interventions for our youth?
Exactly, and that's the solution. 15% of American youth are now on Adderall or some other ADHD medication. Even higher percentages are on SSRIs and benzos. We are not just over-medicating our children, we're over-medicating our entire population. Half the pharmaceutical drugs on Earth are now sold here. 70% of the profits from pharmaceutical companies are from the United States, even though we own 4.2% of the world's population. Not only that, but a recent study by Cochrane Collaboration founder Peter Ghosh found that pharmaceutical drugs are the third largest cause of death in our country after heart attacks and cancers. Oh, they're not making us healthier. We need community health initiatives. We need access to treatment. We need exercise. We need better food.
Okay, let me talk to you about one of those access points in treatment. And this highlights a problem we have in the federal Medicaid law. Since Medicaid's enactment, states have been prohibited from using Medicaid funds for care provided by institutions for mental disease. We refer to them as IMDs. These are psychiatric hospitals, residential treatment facilities with more than 16 beds. This is a discriminatory exclusion, and it denies payment for medically necessary care based on the illness that is being treated, and it has perpetuated unequal coverage in mental health care. So if you're confirmed, when you're confirmed, will you commit to working with me on repealing this discriminatory exclusion and ensuring equal access to mental health care for Medicaid beneficiaries?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you so much. I've got a question on PBM reform, one on artificial intelligence in healthcare. In the interest of time, I will yield back. I look forward to seeing you help make us healthy again.
Thank you, Senator.
Let me just do a quick plug of these deodorants that I have on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get healthy. Use these high quality deodorants. It's for males and females. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and it's a dual purpose product. It'll help to detoxify your body, and you're also using it as a deodorant. Again, it's for males and females. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, and in citrus. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a couple bars of this great deodorant. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas, made from all natural ingredients. So please help support my work and help support your health. And lastly, I want to talk about the probiotics that I have. I have a powdered probiotic that I normally take with my lunch. You can also get a veggie cap version on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Both are very high quality. It's really important to use a good probiotic, improve your gut biome, bring down inflammation, improve your energy absorption. And when you do that, you're going to also improve your metabolism, the communication between your gut and your liver. So your liver health will improve, and also you'll be able to sleep better. Your skin will improve. Poor gut biome also is associated with skin health. You know, poor gut biome will cause problems with skin. Now, with a good gut biome, you'll also be able to have better mental clarity, and your mood will improve. Depression is associated with a poor gut biome. So there's many ways of improvement that can happen to your body if you just properly improve the health of your gut. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the probiotic in the powdered form or in the veggie cap form. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, all caps, discount 5.
The last year alone, President Biden replaced 3,000 people at HHS and 700 at NIH. I want to say this. I said give infectious disease a break because that's the principal preoccupation. Infectious disease, chronic disease is 92%, account for 92% of deaths in this country, and almost nothing is studied at NIH about the etiology of our chronic disease.
But right now,
the money is going to infectious disease.
But I get your point. It's an interesting point. The problem is we had to respond, and it's actually the Gates Foundation and a flu cohort that figured out what was wrong, and that we had an outbreak of COVID that was going beyond the very first case. And so we had to build a very fast response. So I take this to the University of Washington has conducted groundbreaking stem cell research on fetal tissue. To me, I know there's probably a lot of people that may not agree with this, but we're making regenerative heart tissue now at the University of Washington. So yes or no, do you commit to protecting stem cell research for scientific agencies if confirmed?
I will protect stem cell research. Stem cell research today can be done on umbilical cords, and you don't need fetal tissue.
You'll protect the laws that are on the books today and the research that's
My
done.
job is, Senator, to enforce the laws.
Okay, so I want to move to PBMs because PBMs are driving up drug prices. And one of the biggest things that we need to do here, I think, in a new administration is get a handle on everything that is driving up prices and lower them. The report found that PBMs generated $1.4 billion from spread pricing. That is where they are able to basically set the price, not reimburse pharmacies and tissue now at the University of Washington. So yes or no, do you commit to protecting stem cell research for scientific agencies if confirmed?
I will protect stem cell research. Stem cell research today can be done on umbilical cords, and you don't need fetal tissue.
So, Bonnie Girl, if you want to unmic to speak, just do that, and I'll stop the feed from the hearing if you want to speak.
Everything that is driving up prices and lower them. The report found that PBM pricing. That is where they are able to basically set the price, not reimburse pharmacies, and then pocket the rest. We've had bipartisan legislation in several different committees now to get at this. What do you think the solution is?
Need to reform the PBMs. I think we need to get rid of all of these vested interests that are draining money from the system.
Okay, somebody suggested though that you thought you should convene the PBMs and talk to them about some sort of self-regulation. So I am trying to distinguish between these people who basically are doing illegal activities and ripping off, really they're creating pharmacy deserts in my state. So I'm asking you whether you believe that we have to legislate in this area.
Again, I'm not being evasive. I just don't know exactly what the law says. I met with the PBMs. I met with pharma. My job is to meet with all the stakeholders. I've been meeting with stakeholders for 40 years. People I was suing, you want to hear from the other side.
Well,
that doesn't mean I would let the PBMs write their own ticket.
I think
I support the efforts of this committee to come up with bipartisan legislation. President Trump wants to get the excess profits away from the PBMs and send it back to primary care, to patients in this country, to high quality health care.
I'll ask you for the record, since my time's expired, to look at the legislation that came out of the Commerce Committee that defines the legal activities that they are doing to drive up prices, and give us an answer for the record. Thank you, Mr.
In principle, I support that legislation.
Thank you, and let me just tell you the list as we have to move forward to the ending here. Senator Lujan will be next, followed by Senator Marshall, Senator Warnock, Senator Smith, Senator Young, and Senator Welch.
And let me just say again, Mr. Chairman, this is a matter of such importance. A number of my colleagues would like a second round, and I think it would be important to offer, say, a modest amount of additional time to get into this on both sides. I know I have some questions. I want my colleagues to have the opportunity to raise their concerns as well.
Well, as I've indicated to you, Senator White, I'm not going to do a second round. I have been very generous with the senators. I think almost every single senator has had 7 minutes at least. And I will give you a second, as is our practice.
I think I'll then divide my time up with my colleagues.
Okay, you are welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Senator Lujan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kennedy, when we met, you stated to me that it is not your goal to take away programs that work for Americans. Do you stand by that statement?
Yes, Senator.
Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many Americans rely on Medicaid?
It's about 72 million plus the 7 million kids who are on chips.
Appreciate that, 72 million. Yes or no, is it important that expectant mothers and newborns have access to health coverage? is it important that expectant mothers and newborns have access to health coverage?
Absolutely, Senator.
Mr. Kennedy, do you know how many babies born in this country are covered through Medicaid?
I would guess, I don't know the answer, I would guess about 30 million.
I have it, Mr. Kennedy. About 41% or 1.4 million babies births are financed by Medicaid, according to the National Center for Health Statistics. Yes or no, do you believe that Medicaid is a critical program?
I believe that Medicaid is a critical program, but that it's not working as well as it ought to be. And President Trump has asked me to make it work better, that most Americans are not happy with it. The premiums are too high, the deductibles are too high, and everybody's getting sicker. Too much money is going to the insurance industry.
I have a series of yes or no questions. They're pretty simple. Because you heard we're not going to get a second round of questions, I ask for your indulgence to be able to get to them yes or no. In New Mexico, as you know, Medicaid is often measured state by state. It might surprise you if you look at some of those surveys. In New Mexico, the response was 90% of New Mexicans on Medicaid report satisfaction in getting care, 80% getting specialist care, 85% getting urgent care, 95% ease of filings out of focus. Not to pick on any one of my colleagues, but in Louisiana, 86% of people on Medicaid are satisfied with their interactions. 83% are satisfied getting care. 85% are satisfied getting specialized care. 82% getting urgent care. I think go on state by state, but we don't have the time today. Yes or no, do you support cutting Medicaid or reducing, and especially in an area where you and I spoke about with the federal investment in Medicaid, which is known as FMAP?
President Trump has not told me that he wants to cut Medicaid. He's told me to make it better.
Do you support cutting, yes or no? Let me ask you this way, since it's only about President Trump.
I support making it better, Senator.
If President Trump asks you to cut Medicaid, will you do it?
Oh, it's not up to me to cut Medicaid. It'll be up to Congress.
He's asking this question, he's framing the question in this way because the Democratic Party and the establishment doesn't want accountability and restructuring of these agencies where you could cut funding and be more efficient with the funds, and the money hasn't changed to the end user, or maybe more money flows to the end user because of these changes in efficiency. See, it's a canard to assume that if you cut funding, that the end user gets less. Sometimes you can cut funding, restructure the organization, and the end user gets more. So it's make it better is the answer. So he's right. Kennedy's right on the way he answered this. This yes or no, they want to pigeonhole you into this. Well, you said that you were against cutting funds. Well, no, I'm for making it better, making it more efficient. That's the whole idea of Doge.
That gets cut. The reason I'm asking those questions is there's been a lot of chatter and conversations around Medicaid. Now, I agree we can always do better, and we must be doing better in America. But Medicaid has been shown to improve health outcomes, including mortality, quality of life, and access to preventative care as well. And there's some areas, Mr. Kennedy, that you and I touched on specific to Native American communities. One of the concerns that I have are these programs matter to folks. You shared your passion about caring for folks. I believe that passion. My question in this area is, as you know, when folks are doing research and they're going to check to see if medicine works on someone, if they're not included in that trial, it often doesn't help them. That's what all the evidence shows. So what are you going to do when programs are eliminated to require the inclusion of Native Americans in clinical trials when it comes to life-saving medicine?
I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that there's Native Americans in clinical trials. As I said to you when I visited your office, I spent 20% of my career working on Native issues. My family's been deeply involved with them. My father and uncle were big critics of the Indian Health Service, failure to deliver good health results or health care on the reservations. I'm going to bring a Native in for the first time in history into my central office. That all the major decisions in my office will be that he will have he interviewed candidate, a very, very good candidate, will have direct impact on all the major offices. One of my priorities is,
I appreciate that. I will follow up in that space specifically. Will you commit to finalizing the congressionally mandated FDA guidance to increase clinical trial diversity?
if we could just repeat that again, I'm sorry.
Will you commit to finalizing the congressionally mandated FDA guidance to increasing clinical trial diversity?
Yes.
I appreciate that. Will you commit to reinstating all of the pages that were eliminated and people that were fired from this administration that have this responsibility?
I cannot commit to that because I don't know who they are.
Well, there's
I'm
some folks
committed
out
to
there
working with you to make sure that those positions are adequately staffed.
I will follow up in writing in those specific areas because I think there's some commonality here, but answers matter. And so I'd like to get those as timely as possible. The last thing, Mr. Chairman, that I'll say is one of the conversations I had last before this hearing was with a family that I've been working with to work with my Republican colleagues when it comes to autism and federal programs and making a difference in these families' lives and this little girl's life. What I'm asking now, Mr. Chairman, is unanimous consent to enter into the record an article from Autism Speaks titled, quote, "Do Vaccines Cause Autism?" end quote. And I'll note that the first sentence states, quote, "Vaccines do not cause autism," end quote. Thank you. You'll back.
Without objection. And before we move on, we've had a request from several quarters for a quick restroom break. We will take a 5-minute recess. I'm sorry.
All right, so please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the vitamin C, help boost up your immune system. This also has magnesium. Magnesium and vitamin C is very important for your immune system. Also, vitamin C is great for your skin. So please take this. If you're not feeling well, during the cold season, take a double dose. Drink it with filtered water. What's going to be amazing is if this broadcast and the other postings that I do on YouTube, if I get a strike or not, because we've mentioned so many things. With this hearing, we'll find out. But magnesium and zinc, very important for your immune system. You should be taking this every day. You're not feeling so good during the cold season, take a double dose. Take one in the morning, take one in the evening. But typically, you just take one dose per day. Drink it with filtered water, really important. Another stack that's really good to bring down inflammation is turmeric and ashwagandha. Take turmeric. It's an antioxidant, also brings down pro-inflammatory cytokines. That will help with your immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. Ashwagandha root will bring down cortisol levels and help control your blood glucose levels. That will also bring down inflammation, help with your vascular system and your immune system. And if you stack the ashwagandha, the turmeric, and the lignans, you really supercharge this combo. Lignans is a powder. You mix it with your food or with filtered water or a smoothie. Take it every day. There's a small scooper. You take it 1 scooper a day. It'll help with your immune system and help with your endocrine system. So that stack that I just mentioned here, lignans, ashwagandha, and the turmeric are a great way to improve your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Why? Because it brings down inflammation. When you bring down inflammation, your vascular system doesn't have as much inflamed responses. And by reducing the inflamed responses, you are producing an environment that produces less plaque. When you have a chronic inflamed situation with your vascular system, more plaque will build up. So you want to mitigate that. And if you bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines, you're bringing down that chronic inflammation in your body and you're improving your immune system. Chronic inflammation leads to higher cortisol levels, and cortisol is immunosuppressive. You don't want that. You want to bring down the cortisol levels. All right. Two big events are happening today. One is the Federal Reserve announcement, which I believe is going to be at 1:30. Might be at 1 o'clock. I'm not sure. And obviously the JFK confirmation, not JFK, RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing. So what I want to do is go to Bloomberg and see what's going on with the Fed announcement.
0.1%. Dow Industrials down 14, little changed on the Dow. While NASDAQ is down 113 points. For the NASDAQ Composite Index, that is a drop right now of just about 0.6.
I'm gonna just do a market update here. It's the S&P 500 is trading at 6,049. VIX is at 16.88. So the stress levels are not that bad at the moment for the equity market. The Euro USD trade is at 1.04. Oil is trading at $72.64 a barrel. So oil has been going down during the trading session. Bitcoin has been going up. The BITO ETF long for Bitcoin is 24.91. And the USD Japanese yen is trading at 155.11.
And again, complete coverage on Bloomberg Radio. You know the drill well. 2 o'clock Wall Street time when we get the decision. 2:30 p.m. when Jay Powell talks. The S&P lower ahead of results out of Meta Platforms, Microsoft and Tesla. Meta right now up by just about 0.2%. Tesla though down 1.7%, and Microsoft down 0.7%. Bankrupt Spirit Airlines has rejected a new acquisition offer from the parent of Frontier Airlines, but says it does remain open to a long-discussed combination of the budget carriers. Today, we do have shares of Frontier. They're up 6.2%. JetBlue, which tried to acquire.
All right, so they're starting the confirmation hearing for RFK Jr. Again.
This committee will continue and come out of recess and go back into session. Before we go to you, Senator Marshall, I'd like to just tell everybody the remaining list: Senator Marshall, Senator Warnock, Senator Smith, Senator Young, and Senator Welch. And then I did indicate earlier that I would give another 5 minutes to Senator Wyden. I understand he has distributed that 5 minutes to a few of the other senators. So we will have a few more quick questions, and then we will proceed. And I would like to thank the audience again. I know we had a couple of outbursts earlier, but I want to thank the audience for being respectful and encourage the audience to continue to be respectful as we conclude the hearing. With that, Senator Marshall.
Thank you, Chairman. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Obesity, diabetes, heart disease account for probably 80% of health challenges in America. You know how many times I heard my friends across the aisle mention any three of those? I don't know if we've lost the forest for the trees here. Vaccine is a critical issue. I understand that. I don't see how Mr. Kennedy's position any more clear that he's going to support the vaccines, he's going to support the science and empowerment to parents and their doctors to make these choices. 60% of Americans have a chronic disease, but there's an epidemic of chronic diseases across the country. And this Make America Healthy Again movement is palpable to me. It started on the campaign trail in 2020 when moms I'd never met, that never involved in the political process, came up to me and said, look, I want to make these choices about my children with my doctor, not the federal government. That it's a very real thing moms, dads, grandparents across the country grab me and say, look, why do 20% of our children now, why are they on a prescription drug? So, Mr. Kennedy, what is your prescription to help make America healthy again? What's your vision? What does that look like to you?
Thank you, Senator Marshall. We're having epidemics of all these chronic illnesses, autoimmune diseases, neurological diseases, allergic diseases, obesity. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans were obese. Today, 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. No other country has anything like this. In Japan, the obesity rate is still 3%. And epidemics are not caused by genes. Genes may provide the vulnerability, but you need an environmental toxin. Something is poisoning the American people. And we know that the primary culprits are changing food supply, the switch to highly chemical intensive processed foods. We have 10,000 ingredients in our country, in our foods. The Europeans have only 400. If you buy McDonald's French fries in our country, there's 11 ingredients, my understanding. In Europe, there's only 3. If you buy Fruit Loops in our country, they're loaded with food dyes, with yellow dye, red dye, blue dye, and many other ingredients. The same company makes the same product with different ingredients for Canada and Europe. And at age, we don't have good science on all these things. And that is deliberate. That's a deliberate choice not to study the things that are truly making us sick, that are not only contributing to chronic disease, but to mortalities from infectious disease. We need to get a handle on this, because if we don't, it's an existential threat. Our country is not going to be destroyed because we get the marginal tax rate wrong, or because of only 400. If you buy McDonald's French fries in our country, there's 11 ingredients, my understanding.
Let me just chime in really quick here about this. When you have chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease and obesity, your immune system is weaker. So when there is an infectious disease that's going around, it's easier to get. So not only is big ag making money, and big fast food making money, and big pharma making money, but it's created an environment where we have a population that's more susceptible to infectious diseases.
Is not going to be destroyed because we get the marginal tax rate wrong, or because we get one of these culture war issues that we've been talking about today wrong. It's going to be destroyed if we continue down this trajectory of chronic disease. We need to fix our food supply, and that's the number one.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Certainly, I share your concern with ultra-processed foods. On the other end of this food chain are my farmers and ranchers back home. Would you just take a second and share your compassion, how you feel about farmers and ranchers, that they respond to the market? They don't dictate the market. They grow what the market is wanting them to grow.
And Senator Hawley told me the other day that his brother-in-laws are all farmers. And he said 4 out of every 5 of his brother-in-laws has Parkinson's disease. And that kind of cluster we're seeing across farm country of cancers, autoimmune diseases, obesity, etc. Oh, and we can now not export American food to Europe, because the Europeans won't take our food. That's not good for farmers. We're also destroying our soil because some of the chemicals that farmers use destroy the microbiome. And that causes the erosion of the soil. You can't get water infiltration. Water pools up and it washes the soil off. Agronomists now estimate that we only have, if we continue doing these processes, only 60 harvests left before our soil is gone. So farmers are using seeds and chemicals that are, over the long term, are costing them and us. And what we need to do is we need to support the farmers. We need the farmers as partners if we're going to make them work. And I don't want a single farmer to go out of business under our watch. I don't regulate farms. If I'm privileged to be confirmed, I'm not regulating farms. That's under USDA. But I want to partner with all of my decisions with USDA and with the farm community to make sure that we don't lose more farmers in this country, but that we also transition. We offer in
the problem with the farming industry is that you have the agencies that have been captured by the big ag companies, and they're buying farms out, or they're part of a consortium where they buy the land and they have individual farmers farming the land, but it's really the company that owns it, and the company will dictate what they're going to grow. So it's really to solve this problem in the United States, you need to break up the conglomerates like Cargill.
Things are priorities for Kansas farmers. Many of us are doing many of those things already. We just need it to be more widespread. If I could just wrap up my remarks, though, is that, again, going back to the big picture here, 60% of Americans have a chronic disease. Mr. Kennedy, I believe for such a time as this, that you're not just one of 300 million people. I think that you are the person to lead HHS to make America healthy again, that God has a divine purpose for you, and I look forward to your confirmation and working with you to make America healthy again.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Senator Warner.
Thank you so much, Chairman Crapo and Ranking Member Wyden. It's great to be here. Mr. Kennedy, welcome. Welcome to you and to your family. Thank you for meeting with me a few days ago. I'd like to follow up, if I might, with some of the issues that we discussed in my office. I want to talk to you first about the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I'm proud of the work that CDC does, proud that it's located in Georgia with more than 10,000 employees in my state. If confirmed, you would be the cabinet secretary over the CDC. Representing HHS is about 29% of the federal budget. CDC is a part of that. Do you agree that the CDC's work is critical to Georgia, critical for our country, and the health of the
CDC, and I am not wrong on this, the CDC was complicit with the bioweapons program in the United States.
The fierce advocate for the CDC, as am I. The CDC is an agency filled with hard-working, dedicated public health servants. They wake up every single day working to keep us safe. I think we don't think often enough about their work, because it's easy not to celebrate folks who are protecting you from that which doesn't appear because of the work that they're doing. So grateful for the work that CDC employees do. Some of them are members of my church. I saw that deep commitment firsthand when I visited the CDC just last summer. Mr. Kennedy, you have compared the CDC's work to Nazi death camps. You've compared it to sexual abusers in the Catholic Church. You've also said that many of them belong, this is a direct quote, many of them belong in jail. For me, those are disturbing characterizations of the CDC workers that I know who are trying to keep the American public safe.
Don't forget, the FDA and the CDC have a revolving door to their golden parachute in corporate America on a board of big pharma.
Statements.
Senator, I don't believe that I ever compared the CDC to Nazi death camps. I support the CDC. My job is not to dismantle or harm the CDC. My job is to empower the scientists if I'm privileged to be confirmed.
So you retract those statements?
I'm not retracting. I never said it.
Well, actually, I have a transcript
of me saying that it's a Nazi death camp.
Let me read your words. It says that the institution CDC and the vaccine program, your description of their work, is more important than the children that it's supposed to protect. And you know, it's the same reason we had a pedophile scandal in the Catholic Church. It's because people were able to convince themselves that the institution of the church was more important than these little boys and girls who were being raped. That's pretty provocative language. You said in another statement to me, this is like Nazi death camp. I mean, let me finish. I'm just reading your words. I mean, what happened to these kids? 1 in 31 boys in this country, their minds are being robbed from them.
Yeah, I was not comparing the CDC to Nazi death camps. I was comparing the injury rate to our children to other atrocities. And I wouldn't compare of course, the CDC and Nazi death camps to the extent any statement that I made has been interpreted that way. Yeah, I don't agree with that. In 2003, the United States Congress Government Oversight Committee ended an over a year investigation of the CDC and used almost that same language. They said that the CDC, just one division, one branch of the Immunization Safety Office, had put institutional self-interest and pharmaceutical profits ahead of the welfare and health of American children. So that was a conclusion by Congress. And I repeat that.
I'm asking you because you're the nominee for HHS. It sounds like you stand by those statements.
Senator, my objective is to support the CDC. There's nothing I'm going to do that is going to harm CDC. I want to make sure that our science is gold standard science. And it's free from that same government oversight investigation committee. That the panels, the ACIP panel, and within the CDC, I think 97% of the people on it had conflicts. I don't believe that that's right. I think we need to end those conflicts and make sure that scientists are doing unobstructed science.
So I want to enter this statement, by the way, into the record without objection.
Without objection.
Last week, the White House gagged HHS and the CDC, preventing them from communicating all important public health information to anyone, including all of our allies, including our allies in the United States and global disease prevention. Can you just answer yes or no, because I'm running out of time? Do you agree with that action?
I was not consulted on it, but that's pretty much standard operating procedure for incoming administration.
So you agree with the action that gagged HHS and CDC from communicating important public health information?
That directive made sure that no public health and only non-essential travel and mass communications were temporarily suspended pending the confirmation of the new HHS secretary. This is standard operating procedure for administration.
I get it. I don't think what we've seen over the last several days is standard operation for new administration. I think we're seeing some unprecedented actions, but you agree with it. Last night, members of the CDC, along with other federal employees, were actually invited to resign, these buyouts. And I got text messages and folks I know work from the CDC or the CDC that do this important work who got that note. And it's really important because my experience is that when you send out that kind of note, the folks who resign are the folks who you least likely want to see resign. They got other options. They're gifted folks. They got a lot of expertise. They have options. A lot of them are doing this work because of their patriotism, because of their commitment. Do you agree with the buyouts that were presented to the CDC employees just last night?
Is your marketing tech stack stuck in the past?
Indeed it is. Upgrade to AppSquad, the world's leading MMP.
The vast majority of the scientists and experts at the CDC are patriots of good government service.
Can you tell me?
I don't think anybody's going to resign who's going to take an area health.
Can you just answer yes? Okay, you agree with the buyouts. In our meeting, I asked you to confirm your support for the Affordable Care Act. You also mentioned that you and President Trump want to fix the ACA by making premiums more affordable. Can you answer me yes or no? As I don't have a lot of time. Did you know that tax credits that help families afford health insurance and save Georgians an average of $531 per month per person are set to expire at the end of the year? Did you know that?
I do.
We need to move on.
Do you support Congress extending these tax credits so that Americans can continue to afford health care?
Congress has to make its own decisions about that. My instructions for
Mr. Chairman, you're saying I'm having a lot of trouble getting the witness to answer yes or no to a yes or no question. Well, I got one more question.
You're almost at 9 minutes.
Well, I need him to answer yes or no. Yes or no?
I'm not going to answer yes or no to a question that's not susceptible to an honest yes or no answer.
We need to move on.
I think that the fact that you find it difficult to answer basic questions is deeply troubling for me as you present yourself as a nominee to run HHS. Thank you so very much.
I've been in courts all over the country. And perhaps,
Mr. Chairman, you told me I'm out of time, and this continues to filibuster even after I said I'm done.
Senator Smith.
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair and Ranking Member, and welcome, Mr. Kennedy. So, Mr. Kennedy, I don't have a question for you on abortion. I think that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle have covered this, but I want to say I can respect people who have different views than mine on this issue, but it's hard for me to respect people who won't give a straight answer to what they think on this issue in particular. Mr. Chair, I just want to note that I understand that anti-choice advocates have said that in these hearings they were looking to hear Mr. Kennedy provide some reassurance that he is on their side, and I'm not hearing that. And I think most Americans are looking for some hint that the decisions that people make about abortion should be personal and private, and they should be free to make those decisions without government interference, and I'm not hearing that either. To make it worse, the answers that you have given tell me that the Trump administration is more than willing to restrict or even ban medication abortion without a single act of Congress, and even in states where abortion is legal. And what is clear to me is that you and President Trump are dangerous to women's access to mifepristone. So having said that, I want to move to a different topic. Mr. Kennedy, I appreciate Senator Cornyn's questions about mental and behavioral health, something that I care a lot about. I know that you and your family have had personal experience with mental health challenges, as have I.
Just think about this conversation in the Senate. They want to push, at least the Democrats typically, want to push pro-choice. The ability to kill a child, the ability to kill a fetus. Yet they spend all this other amount of time on making sure that certain monies are not cut from agencies to try to save lives. I feel that the ethical consistency there is lacking.
Many
social media. But I don't know. I would never make, because there's no science on that.
Well,
Senator.
there is, Senator. Excuse me. There is, Mr. Kennedy. The science shows that there is no link between school shootings and antidepressants, and in fact, most school shooters were not even treated with antidepressants.
That's not true.
There was no evidence of association. You know.
I don't think you. No. That's totally. Many of these mass shootings at the schools, the shooter is on some sort of antidepressant or on, ADHD medication or Adderall or whatever. We are over medicating children, and it's causing problems. And then when you have all of the other modalities affecting their mental health, like social media, then these types of situations happen.
Could be sent.
I said they should be available to them. I didn't say they should be sent.
You said that folks
Kicking and
that take
screaming.
antidepressants are like addicts. That I can provide that.
Oh, I think they should have the availability. Listen, I know people, including members of my family, who've had a much worse time getting off of SSRIs than they did than people that have getting off heroin. The withdrawal period is, I mean, and it's written on the label.
I have some
It's
experience
very well
with this
documented.
myself, Mr. Kennedy. This is personal for me. When I was a young woman and I was struggling with depression, thankfully, I had the resources to help me get through it, including a new generation of SSRI uptake inhibitors, which helped to clear my mind, get me back on track to being a mom and a wife and a productive, happy person. And I'm really grateful for that therapy. So I have some experience with this, and I think that everyone should have access to that care. And your job as secretary is to expand access to care, not to spread lies and misinformation. And you know, the things that you...
The problem here is that I'd like to know who her lobbying support is. Is it Big Pharma that's pushing SSRIs? You know, here's the problem with psychiatric pharmaceuticals. It's in its infancy, and we don't fully understand how the brain really works. We don't fully understand all of the problems with long-term use of some of these medications. Psychiatric medicine is in its infancy. They don't know what they're doing. They do not know what they're doing. You may get some positive results with some patients, but that doesn't mean that that's going to translate into larger populations. You could have been just lucky. Maybe they didn't have all the, other issues that were going on with their brain chemistry. But the problem is that we're over-medicating people in general, but especially when it comes to psychiatric medicine. And so she seems to be pushing SSRIs for everybody if they just feel that they're depressed. I'm telling you, we do not understand psychiatric medicine. We're in its infancy. We're going to look back in 50 years from now and say that the psychiatrists did not know what they were doing. It's like bloodletting in the 1700s.
And to your point that you made when you made these statements, it was not based on good science. I don't know what it was based on.
I was saying the science needed to be done. I was saying these are potential culprits. We're coterminous, and I named other things. I said video games. I said social media. I said SSRIs. SSRIs have a black box warning of suicidal.
Mr. Chair, I will submit to the chair the information that I have about what Mr. Kennedy has said, linking antidepressants to school shootings. Thank you.
Senator Young. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to see you, Mr. Kennedy. To follow up on that spirited exchange, in talking with you and reading about your vision for the department, you said one of your goals is to return public health agencies to the gold standard of scientific review. You've alluded to the gold standard a number of times today. So I'm going to give you an opportunity, uninterrupted, but hopefully not too extensive, to tell me and others what you mean by this gold standard.
The gold standard means real scientific research with replication of studies, which very rarely happens now at NIH. We should be giving at least 20% of the NIH budgets to replication. We should make sure that all the science is published with the raw data. We should make sure that the peer reviews are also published. And I'll give you a quick example. 20 years ago, NIH scientists did a study on amyloid, on Alzheimer's, which they said it was caused by amyloid plaque. After that, NIH shut down studies of any other hypothesis. 20 years later, we now know that those studies were fraudulent. NIH has funded 800 studies on a fraudulent hypothesis. And we've lost 20 years in figuring out how to a cure for Alzheimer's. And that's just one example. I could give you hundreds. We need to end that. We need to end the old boy system. We need to have replicatable science and be completely transparent.
The problem with some of these research studies that are coming out to push certain drugs in drug platforms is that they're p-valued harvesting. What basically means is that they engineer the study to give good results so they can get money for research, either through a grant, NIH grant, or impress the stock market. But the problem here is that these studies are p-value harvesting to get significant statistical data. So when someone is trying to replicate the study, they can't get it because they're not doing the p-harvesting. So the problem here is that the peer review process is terrible. It's captured by big pharma. And you have agencies like the NIH, CDC, the FDA that are captured. So you have a lot of science that's being published. Just because it's published doesn't mean it's real. A lot of these pharmaceutical companies are p-harvesting their data. A lot of them. That's what he's talking about. That studies need to be replicated.
But I want your response. Might it make sense to share that absence of full information with the American people, that uncertainty? I think one of the things by observation and experience that I saw during the pandemic was we had certain prominent doctors appear on television and indicate, no, you absolutely must not wear a mask. 2 weeks later, it's yes, you must wear a mask. But they were certain. And they even demonized people for not following the latest science, knowing there's a high level of uncertainty in that science. Would a measure of humility, and as you say, radical transparency demonstrates humility, help rebuild trust over a period of years?
Absolutely.
This is the conversation that Von Girl and I had earlier in the transmission here. And that is, there's a hubris in the scientific community. They need to get off of their high horse and realize that their understanding of the science is flawed and that they have to have a large dose of some common sense.
Waste, fraud, and abuse, although we know some exist, it's not in the main because we have greedy executives at innovative world-class companies. It's not in the main because we haven't yet adopted an unsustainable Medicare for all scheme. It's because of this. So I'm encouraged that you intend to make that a point of emphasis as it pertains to your future leadership. I will say, with respect to COVID, it's not over for a lot of Americans. It's not over. I know the mission accomplished banner was convenient for the last administration, but as we continue to navigate the ongoing impacts of the COVID pandemic, we have many individuals here in the United States and around the world who are suffering from long-term health effects that significantly impact their quality of life, work, and daily activities, and they've been largely ignored. Funding for long COVID research was appropriated by Congress in December of 2020, followed by additional funding directed by the Biden administration in February 2024. Patient groups and industry publications have criticized the slow pace of clinical trial design and enrollment, if confirmed. Will you collaborate with healthcare providers, researchers, and effective communities to better understand and mitigate long COVID's impact? Yes or no, please?
Absolutely, Senator. There's 16 million Americans.
Will you commit to prioritizing long COVID research and integrate this work in a broader healthcare policies? Yes or no, please?
Yes.
Patient groups, experts, and industry publications have raised concerns around existing long COVID funding being spent on observational research. In particular, criticism was directed towards recover funding being used to duplicate existing findings instead of funding trials for potential treatments or diagnostics. If confirmed, Mr. Kennedy, will you work with Congress so that going forward, long COVID funding will be directed primarily towards trial or novel research directions and not replicating existing observational research, yes or no?
Absolutely, Senator, with enthusiasm.
Thank you so much. If confirmed, how will you create a balance between your personal priorities of chronic disease and healthy lifestyle and the ongoing critical work of the department in areas that are focused on incentivizing and advancing innovation in modern medicine and pharmaceutical discovery?
I think innovation is going to be the key to public health. And we have a unique opportunity now in history because of AI, because of telemedicine, and because of the quality of people that are now coming to HHS to actually save public health. But it's all going to rely on innovation, and I don't want to do anything that inhibits or impairs the pace of innovation.
It's a combination of innovation and lifestyle change. Like I said, the biggest bang for the buck is proper lifestyle, supplementation, exercise, mindfulness, challenging your mind. And when you do that on a consistent basis, you're going to age better. Now, there are diseases that need to be treated. But a big part of the problem in the United States and in the Western world is lifestyle issues.
My colleague.
And then if we can do that, we can get over to vote before they call the vote on the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. And as you know, I'm a big, great reverence for your family from Massachusetts. When I got out of college, I was in the first class of Robert Kennedy Fellows, the memorial created by your family to honor the service of your father and the community organizing in West Side of Chicago. And I certainly admire your energy in your effort here and desire to serve. You know, there's a couple of things that are really important here. This is not just about a debate on vaccines. It's a debate about qualifications, experience, and priorities as to the person that will head Health and Human Services. And it's not just about what your answers are today or what the questions are. It obviously has a lot to do with your whole record and your whole history. You know, your sister in her letter, or pardon me, your cousin in her letter said, you've always been charismatic, able to attract others through the strength of your personality, willingness to take risk and break rules. That's, I guess, an attribute, but it can be a danger. The question I fundamentally have is whether your just willingness to disrupt and maybe break rules is going to be dangerous and destructive. The character questions we didn't go into here, but there's some sketchy things. You've acknowledged your history with heroin. You've gotten over that, but there's incidents that do, I think, concern the question of whether the stability is there to be in charge of this major organization. And that's compounded by my concern that you don't have any experience managing a large organization, that you don't have any experience in government. So those are things that have to be taken into account. But the issue for me is also priorities. A lot of your engagement in health has been on vaccines, big important issue. You actually disagreed, as I understand it, with President Trump about Operation Warp Speed. I think President Trump deserves a lot of credit for Operation Warp Speed. He knew we had to get a vaccine. And these other issues about a mask and whether you should wear it, whether when you got your groceries, the bag had to be left outside, remember that in the very beginning? Those are incidental to the core question that the president believed we had to have a vaccine. And you contested that. That worries me. That really deeply worries me. The other questions, Senator Cassidy asked you some questions about our healthcare system. I happen to believe that our healthcare system is profoundly broken. And it's not just about the chronic illnesses. That's about our diet, that's about our exercise. But we are getting premium increases in Vermont of 20% a year, 25% a year. And it's busting the bank for taxpayers, it's busting the bank for our wonderful Vermont employers who care about having health insurance that they can provide to their employees. Senator Cassidy asked you a couple of questions about how you would reform Medicaid, and I didn't hear an answer. You mentioned that you thought Medicare Advantage was good. You have a good plan. No focus on what an incredible ripoff was reported in the Wall Street Journal by United Healthcare, which was marketing Medicare Advantage and then paying doctors and nurses where they had assignments essentially to diagnose illnesses that didn't exist. So they made billions and billions of dollars. And I've seen nothing coming out of the Trump administration, and I've seen nothing coming out of your advocacy that is going after what is a rampant abuse by the insurance companies and overcharging people and not doing the job. And by the way, the United Healthcare people, when they did that, they overdiagnosed. When the person really got sick, they dumped them. They dumped them. Go to the nursing home on your own. That's a broken healthcare system. We spend the most and get the least. And I think there should be collective anger about this on both sides, because all of our people are dependent on that healthcare system. And you're going to be working for a president who's on a lawless rampage right now, okay? He has done something reckless with the pardons to these cop beaters. I'm appalled by that. But that's just reckless. That's not illegal. He's impounded money. So right now, the Medicaid website went down. He's impounded money. So the community health centers that Senator Warner was talking about are up in the air as to what they can do. Do you believe that President
Trump put a moratorium on discretional funds, which is in his legal wheelhouse?
I understand that's a huge problem, and
all right, and I don't have time. We've got to get over to vote. So we can.
But you asked me 5 questions. You got to give me a chance to answer one of them.
Please be brief.
Yeah, I have a point. I brought in, if I get confirmed, I've already appointed a general counsel. The first on this is a former prosecutor who prosecuted the biggest Medicare fraud in the case in the state of West Virginia. I brought in a prosecutor for that job instead of a bureaucrat, precisely to address the important issues that you raised here. The only reason I didn't talk about these before is because I wasn't asked about them.
What about,
I agree with you 100%.
What about impounding, a president impounding money that, among other things, goes to healthcare?
And you're saying that that's illegal?
That's correct.
Well, my job is to uphold the Constitution. I'm going to take an oath to uphold the Constitution, and I will administer the law and uphold the Constitution.
Mr. Chairman, I believe under what we've discussed, I control 5 minutes. I'm going to take one, give one to each of my 4 colleagues that remain.
All right, and I would just say this vote, they're going to call it in about 8 minutes.
Thank you.
So we have very little time.
2 hours ago, colleagues, I asked Mr. Kennedy to reconcile his many anti-vaccine statements with his handful of pro-vaccine statements. Instead, he gave us a word salad and ducked the issue. The same was true, Mr. Kennedy, with respect to measles, where you wrote a book playing down the threat of measles, even though American families are very concerned about it. And apparently families are still mourning in Samoa. And my last point would be that Mr. Kennedy said today really wasn't about him. And I just want to tell him it is all about you, because I find your presentation to be both untrustworthy and unprepared, because my colleagues have been seeing back and forth between Medicare and Medicaid, and it's not clear which program you're using when. So I want colleagues to know.
He has a lot of tenure on the Hill. Wyden, Senator Wyden. I'm pretty sure he's on the take, because you don't stay in the Senate unless you are on the take.
Again, 1 minute, please.
There's been a lot of conversation about late-term abortions here, and I just want to make clear what Rhode Island OBGYN doctors describe as what is almost always happening when a late-term abortion is needed. It is a childbirth gone wrong. The family has painted the room. It has bought the crib, maybe even decided on the baby's name, and has gone to the hospital to welcome the new baby into their family in what is supposed to be a happy event. And then things went wrong. Then the alarms started pinging. The lights started flashing. The medical professionals started rushing in. And the question became, who lives and who dies? The mom's life is all.
This situation is rare. And if it was just about some sort of medical emergency, which everyone understands could happen, but it's rare. Why is it that in the laws of some of these states, they write it in such a way where, you know, it's not really a medical emergency, it's really perhaps an economic reason. Perhaps it's to harvest organs or whatever. So let's stop playing the emotional fallacy game when it comes to late-term abortions. A big part of them, not all, but a big part of them is not because of a medical emergency.
And I just want to make very clear what Rhode Island OBGYNs tell me is the situation when these procedures have to be deployed.
Senator Warren.
Then if that's the case, why not have the laws written in these ultra-liberal states where it's only under a medical emergency situation? They don't want to put that verbiage in. Why? Senator Warren. Lovely.
Vaccination rates go down. I asked you about this in my office. You told me flatly that your visit to Samoa had nothing to do with vaccinations. We now know that's not true. I have the documentation. You met with the Prime Minister. You talked about vaccinations. You met with an anti-vaccine influencer who described the meeting as, quote, profoundly monumental for this movement. So what happens? Vaccinations go down. There's a measles outbreak and children start dying. But you double down. You didn't give up. Just 4 days after the Prime Minister declared a state of emergency, 16 people already dead. You sent a letter to him promoting the idea that the children had died not from measles, but from, quote, defective vaccine. You launched the idea that a measles vaccine caused these deaths. You are a very influential man. In fact, you are called the leader of the disinformation dozen. UNICEF and WHO, the World Health Organization, investigated this. They say the claims are false. It is not biologically possible what you claimed. And yet, ultimately, more than 70 people died because they didn't get vaccines. So my question is, do you accept even a scintilla, just even a sliver of responsibility for the drop in vaccinations and the subsequent deaths of more than 70 people? Anything you do differently?
No, absolutely not. There were 2 incidents in which children died. In 2015 and again in 2008. 2015, it was from the measles vaccine. That's what the New Zealand General Hospital found. The government of Samoa banned the measles vaccine after 2018. I arrived in July of the next year after the ban had been in place for a year.
Mr.
And the
Chairman,
measles,
understanding that you wanted to hold this to a minute, and that I don't get to present all the facts and documentation I've got, how about if we just decide to make entries for the record on exactly what the record shows about Mr. Kennedy's participation? And I think he's answered the yes or no question. He takes no responsibility.
Senator Warren, we will do that. And Mr. Kennedy, and to all the senators, every senator knows that following this hearing, they will be able to ask you questions off the record, and you will be able to put answers back onto the record. So please give that answer. I apologize that we're shutting you off for giving a full response right now. Senator Smith, and we are way over time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Kennedy, you have said that you want to give infectious diseases a break for about 8 years. You spoke about this with Senator Cantwell. My question to you has to do with avian flu. Over 100 million birds called. The disease has spread to dairy cows, and there are now 67 confirmed human cases and 1 death. So, Mr. Kennedy, do you intend to give research on bird flu a break?
no, I intend to develop the appropriate resources to prevent pandemics. That's an essential part of my job.
What do you think is causing the avian influenza?
I think the H5N1 virus is.
So that's good to hear, because in a recent book, I will submit this for the record because we don't have that much time. Mr. Kennedy has questioned the scientific basis for germs causing disease and the power of vaccines and antibiotics.
I've never questioned that, Senator.
Well, I will submit that for the record.
Thank you. Senator Warren, 1 minute.
I like the way you said that to the Baptist preacher. Thank you so much, Mr.
You know what?
Kennedy.
You know what is it? It's amazing. Near the end of this hearing, it's just a slew of Democrats pushing their agenda. They're trying to demonize them. It's supposed to go back and forth between Republican and Democrat. I think that the guy that's running this committee, this hearing, he's been run over by the Democrats. The chairperson should control this.
$1 million on Georgia's Medicaid waiver. 82% of that went to administrative costs. The point that I'm making is that the folks that they're insisting need to work. 90% of those folks are working. They are caregivers, or they have a disability. Let me give you one example. A woman I think of all the time. Her name is Heather. She's a traveling nurse from Dalton, Georgia, who falls into the Medicaid coverage gap. Heather experienced a series of small strokes, leaving her unable to work full time. She's dedicated her life to caring for patients, but now she can't afford her own medical care, out-of-pocket costs, because she doesn't make enough to qualify for tax credits to buy private insurance. What does Heather need? Does she need work requirements, or does she need access to health care so she can finally get healthy and get back to work?
The individual that you described would need health care and not a work requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are done with the questioning now. Mr. Kennedy,
All right, so now I'm going to go right to Bloomberg with the rate decision here.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Jonathan Farrow, Lisa Abramowitz, and Tom Keene. Bloomberg Surveillance, the Fed decides.
The first Fed decision of 2025. That decision is just 27 minutes away. 30 minutes after that, a news conference with Chairman Powell alongside Lisa Abramowitz and Tom Keene. I'm Jonathan Farrow, live on Bloomberg TV and Bloomberg Radio. Stick on pause. Seems to be the debate right now. No one thinks this Federal Reserve does anything in about 28 minutes' time.
And they'll try to say even less. The most controversial part might be about quantitative tightening, which tells you exactly where we are. Big question will be the political element of this, and Kathy Jones, who's coming up, is really highlighting how that really will be the fireworks. The response from President Trump and how Jay Powell tries to get ahead of it.
CK, are we expecting the live blog to come from the White House a little bit later on?
Well, it's coming right here. I mean, the video, 20 minutes ago, and maybe we'll see more from the White House. But when is it that this president demands lower rates? Do we see that within the hour, or does it take a week or two? I'm not sure.
March 19th is the decision after this decision.
Yeah.
That's where things get harder, because at the next decision, you get some forecasts. And it seemed like they found it tricky to put out some forecasts back in December, didn't it?
Especially at a time where there's a lot of debate, even among Fed members, about whether
Let me
tariffs are
let me
inflationary.
just plug a couple products here. the products I'm going to show are how to improve your cardiovascular health. All right. You listen to me, you'll be able to reduce the chances of increasing the plaque buildup and also over time slowly reduce the plaque buildup. D3 is a supplement that you should be taking every day. It's a gene expression cofactor. It helps to absorb calcium, and it helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. You can stack D3 with K2, and that will help with bone density, especially when you're taking calcium, and doing some resistance training to remodel your bone matrix. But it'll also help with taking the K2 and the D3 together. This will help with the cardiovascular health. And you can stack it with nattokinase. Nattokinase will bring down LDL levels, increase your HDL levels, but also break up clots because it's fibrinolytic. And then you also stack it with omega-3, which controls LDL levels, brings them down, increases your HDL levels, reduces systemic inflammation, and omega-3 will make your red blood cells less sticky. So that means it reduces the chances of clots. And then stacking it also with a dual purpose product like olive leaf extract. It also controls LDL levels, brings them down, increases your HDL level. So you're improving your total cholesterol, bringing down inflammation to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. So this is a great stack. Omega-3 with the olive leaf extract, and also, stacking it with nattokinase, the vitamin K2 and the D3. All right. So these five vitamins, these 5 supplements here, is a great way to improve your cardiovascular health. There's some other things that you can get on my store. It's called the Longevity Cardiovascular Health Box, and that will also have some other supplements in there to help to reduce the chances of building up plaque, and over time it will slowly reduce plaque with proper diet, exercise, and the supplementation. Some of those are like C60, because by C60 you're soaking up those free radicals and reducing the oxidized LDL. Oxidized LDL is eaten up by macrophages to create foam cells that create the plaque. So if you reduce the LDL and you reduce the free radicals, you're reducing the plaque formation. So this is a great way to get healthy. We were just talking, during the confirmation hearing, 2 big diseases in the United States is diabetes and heart disease. So that means that if you change your lifestyle, control your blood glucose levels, reduce inflammation, control your cholesterol levels, do exercising, you're gonna bring down a big part of the health crisis in the country. Not only that, just for you individually, if you have clogged arteries, you're gonna age faster. Your blood flow isn't as good. So there's many benefits at the societal level, the cost of healthcare. A big part of if you radically change the diet in the United States, where less people have diabetes and less people have heart disease, insurance companies don't have to spend as much money. And if they don't have to spend as much money, then your insurance premiums aren't going to be as much. So there is a correlation between your insurance premiums and the cost of health care because of a diseased population. Now, at the individual level, if you have cardiovascular disease at age 30 or age 40, don't you think you're going to have a lot of problems when you're in age 50, 60, or 70? Of course you are. So it behooves everybody at the societal level and at the individual level to change their lifestyle and listen to the advice that I'm saying. It's about a holistic approach. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, all caps, discount, and then the number 5. You get $5 off on any order. In addition, if you buy an anti-aging box or a longevity box, that's designed, the box is designed to be at a discount compared to buying the products individually. And you can use discount 5 on top of that. So I've done many things to get the products into your hands so you use them to get healthy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. So before I go back to Bloomberg, you know, the markets are moving a little bit because the Fed announcement is at, I think they're going to announce at 2 o'clock, their rate. Bond Girl is in the X Spaces. If she wants to talk, just request the mic, I'll give it to you. And the ones that are watching on Rumble, you can join X Spaces, ask a question, give me your opinion on things. It's supposed to be an interactive show. I want to hear other people's thoughts. It's supposed to be a conversation. It's not me, you know, having a hissy fit in front of my screens. All right. So the ones that are watching on Rumble, please join X Spaces if you'd like to ask a question. And the ones that are watching on YouTube or on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, please join the X Spaces. Just request the mic and I will give it to you. All right, so I'm going to go back to Bloomberg as they're doing the countdown to the Fed rate decision.
And if the Fed still truly is committed to 2%, then it will have no choice but to hike. And that will cause significant market volatility and significant political volatility. So, you know, if you ask me what is one of the things that really would make this market very, very volatile, it is the recognition that a hike may be in our future. I don't think it is, but that's, to answer your question, that's what we're doing.
Unless there is a blip up of inflation because of the tariff policies from the Trump administration, the Federal Reserve is not going to raise rates. I suspect they're going to hold rates.
Hold until the summer.
Interesting. Mohammed, thank you, sir. TK let you off the hook there. I saw us going towards Governor Waller and his recent comments, and we're out of time now. Mohammed, also Queen's College, Cambridge Green too. Mohammed Al-Arian from Queen's College. Just to get that in.
Is it Celtic Green too? Is it
I'm not sure it's Celtic Green. I'm not sure it is. We can double check.
Celtic?
There's a little bit more.
Celtic.
Yeah, Celtic.
Maybe it's Notre Dame.
Celtic. Hikes versus cuts.
Yeah, well,
That conversation's changed quickly.
it has. At the same time, you get 3 people in a room, you get 4 decisions and exactly how the potential risk is. And so ultimately, this is my key question. We've been asking, are tariffs inflationary? And people say, look back to 2017, 2018, they weren't that inflationary. Is this time a different regime in terms of where inflation is?
Diane Swark was brilliant today off of Jason.
Hey, you want to speak?
Hey, yeah, of course.
Yep.
To say thank you for the call-in. I'm going to go, but I just wanted to say one thing that I was thinking of while I was listening to the RFK thing.
Yeah.
Is you know the way that RFK speaks, he's got that kind of, like, he's not that quick and he kind of takes the time to get his sentences together. I think they're using that to their advantage, trying to, like, kind of, the questions are very, like, they're not yes or no. They you can't answer. Do you see what I'm trying to say? They're trying to frustrate his abilities to answer them clearly because they know he has the difficulty in answering. So that's just what I wanted to say before I head out. But I'll be listening to the rest of it while I'm running my errands.
Okay, well, thank you for joining the X Spaces and you have a good day.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for participating.
You too. Cheers.
Right,
Okay.
bye-bye. Bye-bye.
No problem. Bye.
Spotlight on these dynamic leaders. Prudential's reputation as an insurance giant is rock solid, but it's not resting on tradition.
Okay, so Bloomberg is on a commercial break. So let me talk about some other products that I have. As you get older, your pancreas doesn't work as well. It's really important to reduce the load on your pancreas. If you're working out, even if you're older or younger, taking digestive enzymes are really important to fuel your workout. So if you're an athlete, young or older, or you're 40 plus, you should be taking digestive enzymes to reduce the load on your pancreas. These have enzymes that will break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. That means that you'll be able to absorb the nutrients from your foodstuffs, and you're going to be able to fuel your body in your pre or post workout nutrition. So this is a great way to get healthy. It's a great way to reduce the load on your pancreas. All right. A lot of people don't realize, even if you're healthy, you know what? You have an aging pancreas, and it produces a lot of enzymes to break up the foods that you eat. All right. And it wears out. So you want to kind of keep it healthy. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. It helps you also to fuel your workout, pre or post workout nutrition. So please go to my store and get the digestive enzyme complex. Myotrol, really important to take. As you get older, you start to atrophy with your muscles. This prevents the atrophying of the muscles. If you do some resistance training, you're going to gain muscle mass quicker. If you're an athlete, young or older, taking Myotrol as a supplement will help you get the gains that you're looking for strength. This stacks really well with Gladiator Barley. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use the discount 5 code that I have, all caps, discount 5. Get the Myotrol, reduce the atrophy of your muscles as you get older, build more muscle mass. And when you have more muscle, you have more energy, you're going to be healthier. This helps with also mitochondrial health, so it boosts up ATP. Really important. So let's go back to Bloomberg.
It's so big 30 minutes into this, we'll be taking on the football and doing a two-screen situation.
You're going to open it up early so you can see the people in their uniforms parading down the field.
Remember when you and I were putting the tag team timeout shirt because one of us said it was snooze fest?
That was the ECB.
Yeah.
We upset some people.
And I said this morning, I'm sorry, I'm looking for a surprise here because no one's expecting anything, as we just heard from Greg Peters and others.
I will just say that if the Fed heard you say it was a snooze fest, they would feel flattered because that is exactly what they're looking for.
That's the objective. Equity markets right now look like this on the S&P 500, negative by 0.5%, down by 0.6 on the Nasdaq. Just check out the bond market briefly. The 2-year, 10-year, and 30-year. The 2-year opened the last time the Fed met back on December 18th at 424, and we are there right now at about 422. Similar move on the 10-year, really, Lisa. Lots of volatility in between meetings, but the last time the Fed met, we closed that day at just above 450, and we're just above 450 right now.
What's interesting is how much of this is driven by people less worried about the deficit, by some sort of policy shift versus NVIDIA, and what happened with DeepSeek on Monday, and the idea that there was sort of a flight to quality that led to a big rally in the bond market. Did this give some breathing space on some level to the Federal Reserve heading into this meeting?
Bob Michael, JP Morgan Asset Management, joins us around the table. Bob, good afternoon. It's good
Happy to be here.
How would you characterize things right now? Pause or skip?
Feels like they're definitely going to pause. They haven't set us up for anything other than that. And see how good we are in the bond market. We read what they said last quarter, and we kept yields almost exactly where they were for a couple months.
All right, come on, give me a break. We saw a lot of volatility. Yeah, really is that the way that we're livening things up? I mean, there's a real question here about whether, as you just heard Mohammed Al-Arian talk about, the volatility that we have seen in between now and then, it might not be that obvious, is it really demonstrates that the Fed is losing control over rates, over the message, and there are other factors at play that are going to kind of force their hand.
I think there's a lot of money sloshing around in the system. We're going back to a business as usual environment that existed pre-financial crisis, where there's a demand for capital, there's a cost for capital, there's a productive use for it, and market participants will move rates around according to that. I think that's what we're seeing, and that's what we have to get used to.
Off the core equation is net exports, and everybody can guess what they're going to be, but maybe more than any other time, Bob Michael, what you're hearing and interpreting from Bruce Kassman, Michael Ferroli, and others in JP Morgan Economics, what are they saying about the shock of this sustained growth that we've received? Does it continue, or do we ebb away?
We look for pretty steady growth. We're looking for 2.8% in the fourth quarter. Next year, we're looking for low to mid 2%. We're looking for inflation to come down around the Fed's 2% target. We're looking for unemployment to hang around in the low fours, call it 4.25% on average. That's a pretty good environment. The Fed has done a good job guiding us to this point, and we think there will be some capacity for them to come back in and cut rates.
Is that a good environment for bonds?
It's an awesome environment for bonds, and that's what we saw Monday. It's what we've been waiting for. You don't have a bond market that's yielding zero. You've got some yield in the market. It can be that anchor in the storm. It can be that flight to quality, that safe haven. We see investors in every channel of investor coming to us looking to get into the bond market. They can get out of cash at 4.25%, go into an aggregate bond fund at over 5%. You throw a little alpha on that, you're closer to 6%.
So what do you say to people who might be worried about things like some of the policy proposals, whether tariffs are inflationary, whether the immigration restrictions will lead to a sort of supply-demand imbalance that causes wages to rise? How do you tell them, you know what, we're not going to get any more rate hikes, and actually the Fed's going to cut at least once, if not twice, if not more, for the remainder of this year?
Because interestingly, this time you have two Feds. You've got the Fed that's watching full employment and inflation and constantly looking at those things. And you have an administration that's looking at exactly those two things. They've promised jobs and full employment, and they've promised stable prices. And I think you'll see that balance in policies. And I think tariffs are a two-edged sword. It is true there is that initial ratchet up in prices, but that ratchet up in prices will also dampen demand. And I think it's the same thing with immigration policy. Yes, you may lose some of that supply of a lower cost workforce, but also that workforce is a consumer and is consuming, so you lose some of that. I think we have to be more open to it could be balanced.
Hey Bob, just want to clarify, Eagles Green. For the man.
Absolutely, go Birds.
I don't know what you might have heard earlier, but Eagles Green.
It was garbled.
So if the Irish show up, it's Irish green for the next guest?
Yes. And then if if one half of Scotland turns up, it's Celtics green.
Yeah, it's next green.
Yeah, obviously it's all the above.
The green of your
the green. Today?
No, absolutely.
Joining us now is Kathy Jones, Charles Swan, Bank of America's Adisha Barclay joining us too. Bob Michael alongside us. Kathy, I want to come to you first of all. This was called the recalibration phase. They moved 50 in September. They followed that up with 25, went again with 25. And now it feels like they've stopped. I don't know if this is a prolonged pause or a skip. I wonder how you would characterize this current holding pattern. What would you call it?
I'd say it's a prolonged pause. We do still have penciled in one, maybe two rate cuts by the end of the year, but that proposition is less than 50-50 at this stage of the game. So yeah, I think they're on pause, and they have to try to assess the impact of all the risks that were talked about at the last meeting. You know, if you read the minutes of the last meeting, you see they did discuss things like immigration, trade policy, regulation, fiscal policy. So you know that that's front and center, and there's not much that that can do until they have some information about how that's going to play out. So we think they're on hold at least through the first half of the year. And then it's really a wait and see game to see how these various policies work out.
I love this because we're going to be talking to people all day long, including all of us, about how.
All right, so we have about 6 more minutes, 5 to 6 more minutes before the news announcement from the Federal Reserve. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the zeolite. This is a great way to detoxify your body, get rid of heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the zeolite. C60 is a very strong antioxidant. It's part of my 4-pillar system that I've developed over time. All right. C60 is suspended in a lipid. You can get it in avocado oil, extra virgin olive oil, or MCT coconut oil. It'll soak up free radicals. It's very potent. Take a teaspoon a day, every day, to soak up those free radicals, improve your mitochondrial health, and boost up the ATP levels. When your cells are performing better, your tissues perform better. And when your tissues perform better, your organs perform better. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. This is going to improve your different organ systems, your immune system, and it will slow down the aging process. and you're going to have lots more energy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the C60 either in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. Another great product that I have is Boomer Boost. This is one of the pillars of the 4-pillar system to slow down the aging process and boost up your immune system. This has 68 different nutrients. It has a great profile for nutrients. So please go to the store, take a look at the label. There's a big scooper in here. Take a scooper a day, a scoop a day, mix it with soft foods, filtered water, or a smoothie. Take it every day. It's like a superfood. You'll be able to lose weight, save money, because this 1 scoop a day is cheaper than your normal, high calorie breakfast or lunch. So take it during lunch or breakfast. It's a great way to lose weight. It's a great way to boost up energy levels. It's going to help with your cardiovascular system, your muscles, your brain. You're going to improve your metabolism. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost.
It's really strong. So if you put all of that together, we don't see the Fed really needing to cut. And I think the one thing that's being ignored right now is the news article that we got yesterday, published by Nick Demeros. So we know that he is a prominent Fed watcher. He has a history of forecasting Fed surprises, particularly around the blackout period. And he talks about how the Fed is concerned about inflation expectations. So perhaps they are spooked by the UMich data that we saw. And that's just another reason for them to stay on pause.
You said that that it's likely that the Fed will maintain full optionality for the March meeting. And then you talk about why they could potentially cut rates. Does full optionality mean the potential to hike rates? Is that going to be something that he could potentially even introduce, not necessarily in March, but later this year, as this idea of their concern with respect to inflation stickiness?
We're some ways away from that. I agree with Mohammed, what he said earlier, that is one of the key risks, and that is what could really cause another spike in vol in markets. But I think we're some ways away from that. So we kind of roughly laid out a couple of criteria for the Fed to hike. One of them would be that the core PCE gets back to 3%, which again is a difficult path when you're down to 2.5 after March. So 3% on the core PCE, and not just because of tariffs, right? So if it's because of tariffs, sure, you could get there, but you assume it doesn't have long-term implications. So 3% with an unanchoring of inflation expectations, that gets you a lot more concerned, and that could be enough for the Fed to hike again.
Kathy Jones, Bitchute is now for Bank of America, talks about an optionality in March. What's the options, the optionality that Chairman Powell has in his press conference?
Yeah, I think the options he has is to signal that there would be a rate cut if the data proved to be consistent with that. I think he would have the option also to signal that the Fed believes it's done and that it may be thinking about hiking rates down the road. I don't think, though, that decision will be made either way in March. We do think the Fed stays on hold through the first half of the year, because all of these policies that are potentially inflationary also potentially slow growth. So they've got to really parse the mix of how this is going to go. And so leaving all options open for the next couple of meetings seems like the prudent way to go at this stage of the game.
Bob, you're trying to make this sound scintillating. And I will tell you, we missed the most scintillating part of the whole conversation, quantitative tightening. Could they make a decision and actually stop shrinking their balance sheet? And could that actually have some effect that would not be necessarily like watching paint dry?
It would be nice if they said something about it. We doubt they will. You're going to have to live with the Bank of Canada stop quantitative tightening today. So that's all we're going to get there.
Fireworks.
You're trying to make this happen, aren't you?
Well, honestly, Bank of Canada was fascinating. They cut rates, and then they also talked about how they have no forward guidance because tariffs could potentially really slow growth. This was a real statement.
You mentioned GM earlier on this morning, and I'm pleased you did. General Motors came out early this week with decent numbers. decent outlook, and hardly anyone had any confidence in that outlook because that outlook is so dependent on what may or may not happen at the White House with trade this weekend and maybe beyond.
Yeah, and why wouldn't Fed Chair Jay Powell come out and say, how can we have any guidance whatsoever, given the fact there is a great deal of uncertainty, and we'll be monitoring that, but we don't have forward
The
guidance.
Federal
at the time.
Reserve
Nobody has.
kept the rates steady.
What guidance at this point?
Well, we don't really like our central bank to say that they're rudderless. I think they'll stick to the data as they see it. We already know from the last meeting that they're paying some attention to what could come down the road. The question, well, yeah, that's enough. The questions to be asked are, how are they modeling that? And with the Fed funds rate at 4 3/8, do they still categorize that as meaningfully restrictive?
I think you'll get that question in about 31 minutes time.
I think you'll get a lot of questions, but I think that would be a really interesting one. How do you model some of these policies at a time where some are looking at tariffs, some are looking at inflation, some are looking at the open Fed receipt?
Some assume, some speculate, and some guess, and some have got some real ambition about their career on the F1C.
It takes a village.
Yeah, that's for sure. Special thanks to Happy and to Aditya as well. That Fed decision is about 25 seconds away. The scores go into it. Look, a little something like this on the S&P 500, still down by 0.5% on the Nasdaq.
Bloomberg's TV is always 2 minutes delayed when it comes to breaking news for Fed. That's the reason why I know before this is happening.
2-year, 421.76, up 2 basis points, and finally, just to round it out, your 30-year, 478.87 with a Fed decision. Here's Mike McKee.
Nothing burger from the Fed, no change in rates, no change in balance sheet policy, and only small changes in the economic assessment. Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has continued to expand at a solid pace, the first sentence says, a carryover from December. Then a significantly shortened summary, quote, the unemployment rate has stabilized at a low level in recent months, and labor market conditions remain solid. Inflation remains somewhat elevated. Recognizing reality, the Fed did remove a reference to the quote, inflation has made progress towards the committee's 2% objective, if you want to read a future policy clue perhaps into the statement. But that's it. The rest of the statement, other than the committee maintaining the target range at 4.25% to 4.5%, is unchanged. The central bankers say again that, quote, in considering the extent and timing of additional adjustments to the target range for the federal funds rate, the committee will carefully assess incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks. And they've said before, risks to your inflation and employment goals are roughly in balance. The committee continues QT, reducing the balance sheet at current levels, and does not mention any endpoint. While 4 new members joined the rotation this year, Collins, Goolsbee, Musalam, and Schmidt, the decision was unanimous. The rather anodyne statement puts the focus on Chair Jay Powell, who will be speaking to us in about half an hour. Other than acknowledging inflation hasn't made progress, there isn't much in here that will lead you to speculate on what they'll do next.
Mike, just stay right there. Just want to share the price action with you, then follow up the question on the labour market. So equities have backed off just a touch, not a whole lot, but just a little bit more. We're down 0.6% on the S&P. Yields have kicked higher as well by a couple of extra basis points. At the front end by 5, on the 10-year now up by 4. The line on the labour market, Mike, it feels like they've buried the scare of the summer, and that they're now satisfied, almost comfortable that unemployment can stabilize at these levels. And Mike, I wonder what you say about that.
At this point, it doesn't look like they're thinking that the labor market is going to rapidly decompose. There are some signs that things are getting a little bit slower. We're not seeing people get jobs.
For the ones that are watching on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, or the YouTube dashboard feed, you'll notice that the S&P 500 is at now 6,020. So there's a little bit of a sell-off. There was a bit of a spike in VIX. The dollar, the USD, is strengthening relative to the euro and the Japanese yen. Not much change in the oil price. And Bitcoin ETF BITO has been selling off since the news announcement.
reference to inflation making progress toward the goal. You put those two things together on the margins, a bit hawkish, which is the reason why you're seeing the reaction in markets that you are.
Holding pattern for now at least. Joining us, some of the best. The former Fed Vice Chair, Richard Clarida, alongside us, Bob Michael.
All right. I've been going for over 4 hours. I'm going to stop with the transmission here. But before I do that, please help support my work by getting the supplements that I've mentioned. Subscribe to my different channels, share the links, ask your friends and family and the ones that follow you to follow my work. Make sure you subscribe to the 4 channels that I have on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Be a participant, watch the live streams, participate on the call-in through X Spaces. This is supposed to be interactive. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.